Hi folks, I'm Al, the founder of Koii, and welcome to our garden party. As you can see by the plants that I'm surrounded with, we're really making a theme out of this flower thing. I hope you'll excuse kind of the pun that we've chosen to kind of entertain here. Really, the purpose of today's exercise is to show off some of the amazing technology we've been working on at Koii. Really, the purpose of Koii is to build a really simple on-ramp for decentralization. It just so happens that a lot of the technology we've been working on is really effective for kind of very fancy NFTs. So today we're going to give away a few of those. And we're going to have a number of panels, some great kind of speakers, everyone from famous artists to football players. And, you know, we'll be talking about a lot of the different applications of NFTs, but we really want to keep it open-ended. So at any point during today's experience, you can leave comments in the question box, and we'll try to get back to them as quickly as we can. All of the moderators on the panels will be watching the question period and trying to incorporate your feedback, as well as all of the presentations. So, you know, right now as well, if you have comments that you put in, I will see them here, and I'll try to kind of incorporate you into the presentation. We are going to have a couple of little things happening here. So I'm going to show off kind of a brief example of what Koii is and how all this works, give you an idea of what this Narcissus flower thing is that we've all been talking about. And then hopefully by the end of this presentation, you'll all walk away with, you know, having tried out the experience yourselves and actually getting to take away one of these Narcissus flowers to enjoy for yourself. So without further ado, I'll kind of tell you a little bit about Koii. So the purpose of Koii is really to create an onboarding tool. But what we realized is that capturing attention online is very powerful. And so what we do as a network is we actually track the amount of attention that content receives, and then we use that to hand out what we call compute credits in the form of Koii tokens. And you can use these to pay for things from our network, but you earn them for attention. And so actually right now, I'd like to invite you all to participate. So if you scan this QR code on your screen, it's going to pull up a flower. It's a website that we have. It's called the Narcissus Project, which we're unveiling today. This is actually version 2 of the flower. This is going to allow you to see the flower in real time. And actually now I'm also going to click this link and open it. I've given you guys a little bit of time. It's koii.me/v2, so it's pretty easy to remember. Go ahead and type that in, and you're going to see something that looks kind of like this. So we'll pull it up here. And you're going to see a flower pop up on your screen. You'll also see Koii.rocks, which is our proprietary attention tracking portal. So this is where all the content in the Koii network is shown and kind of allows you to actually register attention and view other people's content. This one might take a second. It's a little slow and we're streaming at the same time. While this is loading, I'll tell you a little bit about what you're about to see. So the Koii NFT that is going to appear here in front of you is actually a self-contained application that we've condensed down into a single file. That file then gets uploaded to Arweave, and that allows you to actually interact with the file in real time. But the application that's running inside of it is able to talk to other Koii nodes and actually able to interact with all of the other instances of this NFT that exist in other people's browsers. And so all around the world, all of you who are opening this, you might be breaking our website right now, which will explain why this is loading so slowly. But all of you will be opening the same NFT that I'm opening. And as you are doing this, you will actually be helping me. You will be helping me to open the NFT. Here, we're going to try this one more time. Sorry, there is also a new feature that they added yesterday, which auto scrolls through all of these NFTs. So that just interrupted this and kind of threw it off. I think we're seeing a few different new features possibly colliding here at the same time. I'm going to try opening this in a new window because I think I have a lot of interactions that are possibly breaking it. And one sec, I'm just going to reshare my screen so you guys can see and follow along. It looks like there is a bug actually at the moment with the portal. So I'll tell you a little bit about what this, how this actually works behind the scenes, and maybe we can come back and do the demo at the end of the show here. As a quick note, we will have a giveaway as well of a Bored Ape Canine Club, or Kennel Club rather, later on today as well. So you can get in on that if you stick around. So back to a little bit of kind of where Koii is coming from. Sandeep, can you get my screen share back on the screen here? Thank you. So back to a little bit of what Koii is doing here. So we'll show that demo in a moment. What Koii allows you to do is we store the actual media files of your smart contract and also the actual media files of your NFT all together on the blockchain. This is something we call dynamic and atomic NFTs. So the atomic NFT standard prevents censorship by virtue of actually storing all the media on chain. So there's a lot of NFT platforms right now. You can store things into the NFT platform and you can create an NFT, but the actual content files are not stored on the blockchain. And this possibly, it opens you up to things like rug pulls, but it also kind of undermines some of the purposes of using decentralized media in the first place. And so in addition to that, the Koii network also, by tracking attention, is able to differentiate quality content from content which is otherwise maybe spammy or clickbaity, that kind of thing. And so in addition to that, we also have the ability to do all of this at an incredibly large scale. And so the NFT that I was about to show you before costs only about 25 cents to mint. That's an 8 megabyte file, and the whole thing is stored on chain. So it's a lot less expensive than using Ethereum and other options, and it's also a lot more eco-friendly because of this. And so really our goal here is to build this kind of network that can encompass social media and other applications, and ultimately provide a much larger platform for people to build decentralized applications. And so really the core purpose here is that if we can build something that incorporates everyone and that brings everyone back into the fold, this is going to allow us to build an internet without borders where everyone can connect. And so we've built a very small, lightweight node, which we'll be able to try probably within a couple of weeks. We have a small testnet running at the moment. We're kind of adding people as we go. But essentially the goal of the Koii network is to allow you as an individual to participate in the global scale. And this previously was possible very briefly. When I first got into Ethereum, you could run an Ethereum node on your personal computer, and so you could earn some tokens. And it's since become a lot more difficult. If you wanted to run an Ethereum node now, you probably need a fairly large personal computer or at least like a small rack server, and that's going to be very expensive, in the order of $100,000 probably to get something that's up to par to actually compete. And so that really has limited a lot of people. And so what we wanted to do is to create a system where everybody can install something on their phone and do something useful that their phone does. So instead of doing proofs of work, you do things like web scraping, proxy services, a variety of different small tasks that your phone or your device can actually satisfy very easily. So you're not competing against some big data center like you would be if you're trying to mine Bitcoin. And so if you wanted to RSVP for this, you can go to koii.me/1billion and we'll get you into there. And this is in the early stages at the moment, but really our goal is to reward you for helping us grow the network. So if you get in there now, it's going to be beneficial to get involved early, because the voting power that you accrue now will count in the future. And the more voting power you have, the more tokens you can earn. And so really our goal with Koii is to be kind of an on-ramp in the sense that we are both fully decentralized. Everything in the Koii network is completely decentralized. So there's no centralized servers that are kind of ferrying things back and forth. And there's none of this like storing media files on Amazon and then kind of adding them into smart contracts. So we really decentralize all the content. And then the other side of it is this easy to use component, which we're still figuring that out a little bit, but we've incorporated a number of things. So if you use the Finnie wallet, for example, you can drag and drop a file to create an NFT. We're working on adding Ethereum key pairs this week so that you'll be able to begin using OpenSea and other networks like that to sell your NFTs. And you can go to koi.rocks/faucet to actually get some free Koii and R tokens so you can start playing around with these networks. We're really mainly here to help you, our users, actually get into decentralized technology and start to use it. And so really the thing that we're hoping for today is that some of you will come and join us. And so there's a number of ways to get involved. I mentioned running a node. The other way is to try out the Finnie wallet. So the Finnie wallet will allow you to make your own NFTs and also interact with any websites that are supported. And then finally, we also are now opening up the door to developers. So we have quite a number of SDK installs happening lately. We've got a number of different toolkits that are installed or that are up on NPM. So if you're a JavaScript developer, you can easily install any of these and start playing with Koii. And most of those are currently tailored towards NFTs, but we're also releasing the Koii task standard in the next couple of weeks, which will let you use these Koii nodes to start running different operations. So if you're interested in things like, for example, web scraping, proxy services, VPNs, messaging apps, any of those sorts of applications, you can kind of think of the Koii network as a network of nodes that you can have access to. So it's a big opportunity there if you're working on new kinds of products or decentralized applications. And so the other side of this too is, if you're not looking to build your own thing, but you might be interested in kind of helping out or getting involved, we have a large team, but we're very rapidly hiring and trying to find more people who want to help us with this mission. So please get involved, send us a message. hello@openkoi.network, or you can fill out the form on our website or message us on social media or in the Discord. So yeah, please, thank you. Please enjoy the rest of the presentations today and the panels, and thank you for your attention. It's really a pleasure having you here. I think we're going to take a quick break for a second, and then in a few minutes, we're going to come back, and myself and the Edge of NFT guys will kind of go over a little bit of what the last year or so in blockchain has looked like, and we'll give some context for today's presentations. Thanks so much. Stay tuned. Hey folks, we're back. Sorry about that. It looks like you guys managed to crash our site. Something happened in the back end and we lost it for a minute. We are online again now. Please take a look, if you can, at my screen. Cindy, can we get that up on the main view there? Okay, so it looks like there are 20 people currently viewing the Narcissus NFT. It got up quite high before that, actually, as you can see by the fact that it's fully bloomed. So normally we see fully bloomed at about 50. Turns out that a bunch of people also tried to open the a bunch of other stuff that we're working on at the same time, and you actually managed to crash our attention tracking very briefly. But this is a great stress test of the system. We love seeing that. So what's happening here behind the scenes is all of these proofs of real traffic are getting gathered by the Koii nodes, and then they're getting displayed and transmitted between the Koii nodes so that they can collectively ascertain how much attention this flower is getting. Then inside of the iframe, inside of this application in the NFT, the flower itself is fetching that information off of the Koii nodes and allowing it to update in real time to show us whether or not people are looking at it and to see it bloom. So just wanted to give you a quick glimpse of how this works, because in a few minutes you'll be able to go and get your own from narcissisnft.com. So once you have the Finnie wallet installed, you can actually grab this guy. So it's narcissisnft.com, and we'll put that link up on the screen for you too. To get your NFT here, you just have to have the Finnie wallet, and you'll be able to pluck one right here, which you can then share with your friends to see it level up. And once it levels up, you'll be able to trade it. And hopefully, people will be very excited about these. You also do have a unique flower. So each one individually has its own unique color composition that comes from its transaction ID. So every single transaction on the blockchain is unique, and this kind of creates a genetic code for the flower. So each of you will have your own limited edition one after today, and that will be the end of the V2 flowers. So that'll be the next 250 or so, and then we'll move on to a slightly more, possibly more developed flower, possibly different flower. We're just experimenting. Also, which you'll see later on today, there is a new gallery for these available on the Decentraland portal, and so we'll be unveiling that later on today. We call it the Shanghai Gallery. At this point, I think I'd like to invite the guys from Edge of NFT to come up on stage with me here. I think we're going to do a quick kind of recap of the last couple of years in NFTs for a bit and give some background before we jump into the panels. Hey, Josh, how's it going?
Hey, Al. It's going great. Great to see you.
Indeed, indeed. Do we have Ethan and Jeff joining us as well?
Absolutely.
There they are.
How do you do?
We got the gang back together again.
Ethan, you're looking dapper as usual. Perfect
I am fully bloomed because you are paying attention to me. You are looking dapper as well as Jeff. There's a lot of dapperness going on behind the scenes. I got to meet a bunch of members of the Koii team who are all like really fashionably cool in their own unique ways, which that was just fun.
It's a big day.
We are working very hard to be the most attention-grabbing people on the internet. We'll see how that goes.
Well done.
So the last time that I talked to you guys, you were interviewing me. We're going to turn it around a little bit, and I'm going to ask you some questions about your experience as podcast hosts in the NFT space. Because I understand this has been kind of a whirlwind journey. You guys have risen very quickly to be one of the top NFT podcasts around. Can you tell me maybe a little bit, like maybe one kind of question just to go around the table to loosen things up? What was the craziest NFT story that you saw this year, the most exciting thing that you saw in the NFT space?
Man, there's so many, right? Like,
or an exciting thing. Doesn't have to be the most exciting.
Yeah. Listen, man, the thing, like, and it's obvious because we've talked about it a ton, right? But the original kind of Beeple, right, sale, right? When you everyone's very familiar with it now, but when you look back on that and the impact that had as far as elevating this entire thing, this entire journey that NFTs have been on here, in particular over the course of 2021, to elevate that into the awareness of the mass populace, is something huge. And when my mom and dad are asking me, about NFTs, having never heard of it before because of a news story like that, to me, it was one of the biggest. And even though we've in the space all heard of it, and maybe it's played out a little bit in people's minds, man, what a game changer in my mind.
Yeah, you can definitely say that it's closer to mass adoption now than it's ever been.
Sure. Another key moment, I think, when Visa bought a CryptoPunk, I mean, that's just a big signal, right? You've got one of the oldest, most traditional sort of finance institutions in the world, who has no direct or public relationship with purchasing items on an Ethereum MetaMask wallet, which is probably how they did the transaction, who did that. And I think it was a signal of what's to come.
Yeah, and I can't think of a specific moment, but when I think of craziness, I just think of, entering the space officially as a podcaster just a few months ago, realizing the foundation that's been around for a while, and kind of being able to witness this inflection point that's going on right now has been pretty insane. And we talked about, various businesses in this space raising capital, and our first episode where we mentioned that it was on the same level that the Beeple sold for, right? It's like, okay, so there's some capital being raised in the space, but Jeff made the comment, yeah, it's not like that much more than the Beeple sold for, though, when you aggregate it all. But as we've progressed over just the past few months, there's so much money flowing into this space from very smart people. One of my favorites, just to give an example, is OneOf. I'm a musician, and that is a music platform, a green NFT music platform backed by Quincy Jones. You can imagine someone with that much clout and that much history reaching back into history and also extending his hand into the future. It's really fascinating to see everybody diving in.
Totally know what you mean there. It's very interesting to see how people are adapting to use the technology, I think. One of the big things seems to be that as we bring more people in, we have more expertise, more experience, and more people kind of coming up with their own applications. I'm curious, the other side of what we're doing at Koii in a big way is to try and popularize different kind of cultural standards and norms of how we interact with this technology. What are some concerns or things that might be really important for us to keep in mind as the space develops? Things that we should try to support, things that might not be good to support. One that we're really passionate about, as an example, is artist rights and making sure that copyright is not infringed upon. Is there anything or any commentary on that side of it? Have you guys come across any really interesting people who've worked on that problem or similar problems?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we have some friends at Eureka. It's a really interesting project trying to deal with that issue on a deep and intimate level. I think that's an important one, among the many. And I think another thing that has come up a lot that I think is not talked about often enough is that not all NFTs are created equally, right? There's a lot of bad code out there in NFTs that don't port over from one platform for another. I think what Koii is doing in terms of, building on Airweave and really looking at permanency is so important, because you don't want, your utility bill to not get paid and then your NFT suddenly isn't in your wallet or the lights have gone out.
I absolutely know what you mean there. Yeah. Keeping these things liquid is also a huge concern too, like making sure that you can actually continue trading them in the future. Otherwise, it would kind of destroy the whole purpose to some extent. Sorry, Ethan, didn't mean to cut you off.
Well, it's interesting what Josh said about this. All NFTs are not created equal. I think the first time that really came to my consciousness was when we had Garrett from Rare. That's RAIR. This platform that facilitates streaming, facilitates private access to NFTs. So instead of one that everybody can see, only you can see it because you have the NFT. And he, I think, was the first one that I heard this phrase: all NFTs are not created equal. And I think when you think about things to watch out for, we're among all the people that are having fun in this space, diving into things, you're not sure what it is. That's part of the fun. All of us know, as founders and creators, we like that space where everything's a little bit uncertain and we're co-creating. And at the same time, put some time into due diligence. What are you getting into? If you're buying an NFT, don't just buy it because your friend told you that it's cool. Find out who the team is behind it. Try to figure out what your rationalization is behind, why it's going to be valuable, and also have a strategy. If you are investing, for example, in an asset, don't just buy it. Think about, are you going to sell it? Are you going to hold it forever? How many are you going to buy? And are you going to have some sort of a platform? Are you going to have a portfolio, right, where you have multiple NFTs so you can spread out the risk and not invest in just one? So those are some of the things that I can think of in terms of things to watch out for.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. kind of curiosity of how to manage it as both an investment and also art is very interesting to me. It seems like a lot of people are starting to embrace this kind of dual nature of the technology. Sorry,
Yeah.
Jeff, you look like you're about to jump in there.
No, just just to echo what the guy said, it's paying attention, to the dynamics of what you're actually buying, and having an idea of what you want to do with it. Again, there's a lot of fun in the space. It's more than just enjoying the singular thing you're buying. It's distinctive as a class of investments, as a class of collectibles, as a class of tradables, and that the community behind it is growing like so rapidly. And there's this community element to this as well. And so this is another thing just to know that there's a community out there of people that are interested in these same things. And you can tap into that community to help, provide guidance, education, support. I like that element of it as well. And it's something for especially people that are new to this space. I always try to remind them is there is a massive community behind it. And that's what makes so much of what's happening right now so special.
And yet we're so early, right? I've heard numbers like 100,000 people in the community and, 200,000 wallets on OpenSea at this point. And, assume people own multiple wallets, right? So if you're here at this garden party, you are early to the party in every regard, and you are part of co-creating the future.
I'll just follow up one more thing on what you're getting. We're seeing a lot of utility, and I think people think of these things as art. Of course, there is something that's beautiful about all kinds of NFTs, but I think we're seeing that a lot of them have value because of their utility. And to piggyback on what Jeff said, sometimes utility is not always stated, right? Like a Gary Vee might say, oh, I'm going to give you a gift every year for the next 15 years, or I'm going to let you go to any of my conferences. That's a very clear stated utility, but at the same time, the community itself can be the utility. So if you look at something like the Bored Ape Yacht Club and you dive a little bit deeper, there's a lot of things that were unstated, right, in their initial roadmap that have become part of the utility of owning a Bored Ape. So some other things to think about.
It's a really interesting point. The community is very much the utility in a big way. That's something we're very focused on with Koii. That's kind of why we set up the attention tracking the way we did. It's sort of, if we're going to have inflation, we want it to subsidize actual growth in the network and not necessarily just enrich the node operators or something to that effect. There's a very interesting comment in the chat here. It says essentially that while NFT technology obviously has huge potential, is it always going to be part of the crypto industry? Which I find really interesting because for a long time, crypto and blockchain was what led to NFTs to some extent, but we're starting to see these kind of NFT specific blockchains emerge. Is it possible that these will, separate and become different industries?
I think NFTs are bigger than one industry, and it's really about converging technology in a Web 3.0 society. At the end of the day, I think we're moving rapidly towards a creator economy, and NFTs are providing a bridge between blockchain and the mainstream in a way that's unparalleled. Where people are getting, there's more and more platforms that are using credit cards. And I look at NFTs as wrapping paper for, metadata. And you could do a lot of things with these things and apply it to e-commerce and supply chain. And, I don't necessarily think that we're going to call NFTs in 5 years. And I think they're going to be integrated into the DNA of society by that point in time.
Yeah, agreed. But fundamentally, the blockchain nature of them is what enables so much of the capability there. And I think that in some form or fashion will remain. But the potential is immense. And we're really just scratching the surface here. And it may be the best use case for blockchain that we've seen or may ever see. Right.
Definitely inclined to agree with you there.
It might be a little bit, overused analogy, but a lot of people are comparing where we're at with NFTs right now to, kind of say the year 2000 with the internet or websites, right? Like back in the 90s, it would be difficult to sell someone a website because they go, what do I need that for? And you kind of see that around NFTs. There's a group of insiders who see the value, but then there's people who are like, could you please explain? Like, I really don't get that. But again, piggyback on what Jeff and Josh said, it's not just that 10, 20 years from now, you know, NFTs will be as ubiquitous as websites, but there's just also collateral things that NFTs will do and could revolutionize the way we interact as human beings. You know, it's that big.
I think that's a huge point. One of my co-founders on this project is a lawyer, actually, Colin, who we'll see later on today. And he brought up a very interesting notion that all laws effectively stem from property rights. And so previously, we on the internet have had a very hard time handling any kind of legal rights because we just haven't had any property rights. And so as people start getting used to this idea of actually owning content, I think it's going to dramatically shift, like psychologically, how we feel about this interaction. On that very fantastic note, I think it's about time that we're going to hand this over to you guys actually to take the next panel. As we do that, very quickly, I want to do an update on the Narcissus flower because right now it has, it looks like 46 active viewers currently looking at it. And as a result, it has not only blossomed and has had the background aura changed to yellow with blue trim, but it has begun to flash in a rainbow, because it briefly got over 50 concurrent viewers. And so if you get one of these Narcissus flowers and you get it past that 50 or 50 concurrent viewers threshold, and it's going to start flashing rainbow, and it should stay like that after that. So please go grab those Narcissus flowers while everybody else is presenting today. You can do both at the same time, but stay tuned for some fantastic new presentations from the rest of the team. I'll hand it off to you guys to take it from here.
All right. Looks like we have Kevin and Romero in the house. Guys, welcome. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So we got Josh and myself, co-hosts of the Edge of NFT podcast, here to chat with you about, I think, a very interesting topic, which is, are NFTs really punk? We'll let that guide our discussion for today. Lots to talk about. I think there's something really special there. But first, let's just take 30 seconds and have you guys give a little bit of background on yourselves and how you were led to the world of NFTs. So Romero, let's start with you.
Okay, I'm Romero out of Greenville, North Carolina, currently by way of New York City. At any rate, I'm a classically trained artist. From like the 70s, but somewhere around in the 90s, I started to get into digital art with the advent of the computer. And from there, what I was looking to try to find to do is exactly what it is that we're doing now, is a digital output, because I felt that artists were like the last ones to come into the digital age. And then besides putting artwork out digitally on paper, I switched over to saying, hey, gee, it looks a lot better when I'm looking at the digital image. I use a stylus and so on to create it. Why don't I just leave it in that format? So I've been on this path and on this road since about the year 1994 and 2000.
There we go. And Kevin, what about you?
I've been making art for, I think, 32 years now, 32, 33 years, always sort of at the intersection of art and technology. I've done a lot of photographic work as well, generative photography. I integrate machine learning and AI into my work. And obviously the last many years using blockchain as a method to make work. So yeah, that's it. And I think my first NFT was early 2018. It was an ERC20 token that didn't have any media attached to it, but it was unique and non-fungible, therefore an NFT. I didn't call it an NFT, but that's what it was. And here I am speaking with you guys.
That's amazing. So you guys have been in and around digital art for a long time. One of the themes we've heard from so many folks is that they've had a fun time going back into their archives, looking through their computers and finding old files of art, and then now taking that and finally sharing that with the world in the form of an NFT. Any fun finds of that nature in your history or in your computers or even floppy disks? Who knows?
Yeah, well, definitely. I can think of one of them, and I actually put that out as an NFT. My first experience was I was working with a company that was doing experimental microwave television in '94. They sent that over to Microwave Airways. Anyway, just to make the story short, is they were the only ones that had an inkjet printer at that time in '94. I mean, you had to be a big company like you know no profiting off of this, but the company was AT&T. They had the inkjet printer, so I took the early Microsoft Paint and did a digital picture with my finger in Microsoft Paint and had one of the workers there output it on the inkjet printer. So I see this thing coming out, and there's tons of ink being used. She's getting ready to kill me because the company's all this red and blue, and like, hey, you used up all our ink supplies. So I actually still have that work, and it's on the blockchain as an NFT.
That's awesome. One of our early guests on the show was Fred Krueger. He's behind Proton, and he also was the gentleman that invented layers in Paint Shop Pro. So a lot of the energy behind this, people are like, this just happened, right? But to your point, guys, this has been an evolution that's gone on for over a decade.
That's right. It's exactly what it is, an evolution, which will feed into the title of this panel, because I'm not sure it's totally punk rock, but we'll talk about that later. No, I look back at stuff. It would be easy to sort of go back in the archive and see, like, what could I pull out and turn into an NFT. Usually I stumble across the stuff accidentally. Sometimes it's because I'm like, I know on that hard drive I got a Bitcoin wallet somewhere. I'm going to find it, and then I never find it. But in the course of looking through it, I find some other stuff. I did work early on using neural nets and fuzzy logic to analyze pap smears using electron microscopy. And and the funny thing is, while that had a practical application as an artist, even back then, I couldn't help but start playing. So throughout the 90s, whether it's CMOS or CCD sensors on cameras, and any which way I could tweak, bend, otherwise subvert this technology to take a deeper look at myself or ostensibly some subject, I did. And the funny thing is that I can't say that all of it was done with the intention. In fact, most of it was done certainly ever showing it to anyone. So like for me, that I said 32 years as an artist. Well, I know when I first identified as an artist in 1989. And there's stuff you do in your practice as an artist, and there's other stuff you do that I don't know what it is. When I look at it now, it certainly looks, it's clearly work that I did, and whether it's art or not, I think it is, but I don't know. I'm so many people are telling me, you bring all that stuff up and do a book, etc. And I feel like that stuff is sacred and needs to be need to think that through if that's something that needs to manifest
totally
today.
I guess a follow-up question for you, Kevin. So we're going through with art, Basel, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. I haven't been yet, but I will be going this year, right? Because there's a big NFT conference, the Central Con, right before it. And, last year, the highlight of the show was the banana taped to the wall with duct tape. Now, a lot has changed. We've got NFTs galore, and I'm really curious what you think that convergence will look like this year at the show, and what the future of Art Basel and that sort of culture is now that we have NFTs in the mix.
Well, you're. I guess you're talking about Art Basel Miami, which is coming up. But I just drove back 3 days ago from Art Basel in Basel, Switzerland, the original one, which is also sort of the more conservative one. It's the largest one, and I showed work, both physical and NFTs, with Gallery Nagel Draxler, and the show was curated by Kenny Schachter, and there were a handful of artists there: Anna Ridler and Olive Allen and Sarah Friend and myself. And here's the shocking thing. With all the hype that we've all been hearing about for let's call it the last year, it was the only gallery, including some of the big names like Koenig and Pace. Nobody else thought to bring in an NFT, which I thought was really, I mean, it's their choice, right? But it's kind of shocking in a way. And it was almost like there was a front, like there was a unified front against it. It was almost it was too much to not be a statement of sorts. But like you say, I suspect Miami will be different.
We'll see if Miami's a little bit more punk.
I know, right? But one of the things about punk and the music movement was some of the societal pressures on people at the time, the message that was coming through the music and what people were trying to communicate to the world. It seems like there's a lot of that baked into NFTs, in particular around artist rights, direct ties to royalties, direct ties to ownership. What are you guys' thoughts on the parallels between NFTs and past societal movements like the punk movement? Romero, let's start with you.
Yeah, well, the punk movement, which I lived through in New York, which was pretty vibrant at the time in the mid 70s, is almost the exact same parallel if you think like in terms of CryptoPunks and what you're talking about. Because what was going on, I was actually a musician and an artist as well back then, is you had the disco music. And, I don't know how people here feel, but to me, the voices of the Bee Gees were annoying with the disco music. I don't want to dance. That was just driving me nuts with the disco music. And what was happening is musicians like myself, guys that were not famous like the Who or the Stones, in these garage bands, just started coming up with music with just 3 simple chords, power chords they call them, and they started coming to all these clubs in New York City and playing CBGBs, a lot of places. So it was a movement of the people. Now, the same thing was happening at art then as is happening now, is you have all these exclusive places like Art Basel and so on that you're talking about. I've gone to a lot of them where they're fighting against the traditional, the keeping the doors closed. Well, how could you call this Giclée art? You could print 1,000 of them. So what's happening now is just what some of us artists were looking to create, is all of these people that were creating and putting stuff on Instagram are now garage artists. So a lot of them may not be traditionally trained like myself or Kevin. I went to Pratt out in Brooklyn. So they're just saying, hey, well, gee, there's nothing left. There's no jobs at the factory for me and so on. Everybody's laying off. Everything is made by machines. And I think it might have been you, Jeff Kelly, that said about the creative economy. Was that or Josh? Somebody talked about the creative economy, and that's what I'm talking about. This is equivalent to me to the industrial age. So we went through that whole industrial age 100 years ago. This is why NFTs this is a radical shift in the whole paradigm here. Is now it's all about creatives. That's the only thing that man has left.
Totally. And I actually went to a physical and real life garden party this past week. And one of the speakers there was Emma Jane McKinnon from Digilax. And, just to talk about that industrial revolution, any human being on earth, whether they have textile experience or not, can create a pattern or a fabric in her digital universe in Digilax, and then any other designer can take those materials and create something with them, and those royalties exist forever for that one person. So you could do a squiggly line that people love and think is beautiful, and now you are part of this co-created sort of digital fashion universe, and I think that's just amazing. And I think that that we're just the beginning of the co-creator economy, and that's why I mentioned that earlier. Kevin, what are your thoughts?
Well, no, I mean, I like everything Romero had to say for sure. And I grew up, maybe it wasn't the late '70s so much, but early '80s punk rock scene, maybe. And it was more West Coast and England. But look, if leveraging technology to lift up empower people who are marginalized or disenfranchised or whatever, or just upset is punk rock, then I guess it's punk rock. But we talked about evolution before, and I just see it as a sort of a natural evolution. Punk rock for me and the scene that came up around it was. Well, first I see it was a genre of music, and it's the reason I feel like kind of forced to weigh in on it in one way or another is because when we talk about the NFT space, I think that it's just too vague. There's so many verticals within the NFT space. There's the self-proclaimed trash artists. There's the collectible PFP sort of stuff. There are people who scan in oil paintings. So I just don't like to lump it all into one thing. Sure, is the technology empowering? Yeah. If the art is thematically tied, I guess, to revolution through decentralization, yeah, that sounds pretty punk rock to me too. I don't get warm and fuzzy when I see stuff that purports to be revolutionary and it's just coming out of youthful naivete. I do get excited when I see people of any age, youthful or otherwise, who are, taking a stand against an establishment that is unjust in this way or that way. So yeah, I mean, I guess, look, I'm not going to let's call it punk rock, but I mean, like, with a bit of let's not get carried away. Like,
right, it's its own thing, yeah, for sure, right? Well, as you look globally at this, do you see, and you guys have seen all kinds of art from all different walks of life and all different geographies, have you seen differences based on geographic location, what NFTs mean to different people around the world?
I'll just quickly, yeah, definitely. And depending on the locality, issues around like gas and general expense. This is that thing. It's like the implicit promise of the blockchain to sort of empower people who otherwise don't have it, and then they're being told if they want to mint an NFT, it's going to cost them a couple $100 in gas. In some places in the world, that's not possible, which is what is so exciting actually about Koii and Arweave and all these other alternative blockchains, and hopefully whatever Ethereum has in store. But yeah, I mean, but again, temper it with a little bit of realism, in the sense that when Web 1.0 emerged, just because you threw your poems on a website, and then a week later you're wondering why you didn't win a Pulitzer Prize, there still has to be a discovery mechanism. So wherever you are in the world, whether it's at the top of a mountain in Tibet or in the middle of New York City, just because you mint, some dope NFTs doesn't mean anybody's going to see them. Right. So that's something that still obviously has to be all fleshed out if we're going to, encompass all that will truly empower the artist.
Yeah, absolutely. How about you, Romero?
Yeah, I think along like Kevin, that there are still, I'm saying, a lot of similarities with the trend of what's happening in music, because it's still music, and NFTs, which is art, is one of the art forms, even though we're at the early stage. And what I've noticed that kind of parallels, again, what I'm going to say is the music scene is, for Kevin, I think the people in Europe, in the UK, are a little bit more cerebral than the people in the rest of the world. Well, why I say that is, a lot of people that are calling and asking me about how to do NFTs, they're talking about this strictly from a commercial point of view. They just want to jump in because they think it's hot. Now, what I noticed with some of the people from the UK, which reminds me of the similarity that Jimi Hendrix had been around for a long time playing music in the United States, but yet, because his music was so avant-garde, had to go to the UK to come back to the US, just like with the Beatles and so on, is some of my fans from the UK started realizing, well, gee, your stuff is dated 1994 and so on, and you've been doing this a long time, and you tried out and started with Amazon and so on. So they're looking at it and saying, well, gee, you're one of the OGs in this, and they're looking at it a little bit more analytical as to what is this value, intrinsic value of the NFT. So yes, it is. And some of these same people are trying to, as Kevin was talking about, uplift some of the African artists and people from different places and so on. But like what my main point is, art is a means of expression. And what we hippies were talking about, that might be a little bit before your time, Kevin, is the enlightenment of the coming and the dawning of the age of Aquarius. This is where we are right now, where the only thing that I keep trying to say is the only thing that man has left is creativity. And this is what the big spark is. And as people are trying to figure this out and get their way there, we're now trying to figure out, well, how do we put a value on it? And it's not only uplifting people that are in need, because this is the problem with the commercial aspect in this. Like with Snoop Dogg and his NFTs and come by, Snoop Dogg doesn't need any more money. Beeple doesn't need any more money. He was doing commercial art before he took that. And that's one of the things that I'm looking at. He's not really an artist. He's a commercial or an illustrator and so on that says, hey, let me make some money off of selling this over here. So it's for the rest of the people that has a whole change in society that is bringing out this creativity. It's not just a means of money.
Yeah. Romero, you said something so profound in terms of creativity is all we have left. That sort of is sort of injected in my brain now. And I was trying to figure out myself why this is so powerful right now at this time. And that hit home for me. Kevin, you talked a little bit about sort of naivete and just sort of copy paste concepts being a problem. And Romero, you talked about sort of people coming in for false pretenses or people trying to create layers between the artist and this opportunity, right? Like adding layers and sort of trying to get their piece of the pie back from the artist, which now doesn't need to share as much pie. I guess I am curious what other challenges you guys see with the industry, and let's give Koii some love for a moment, because I think they help solve some of these challenges, right? How do you get noticed? You reward people for giving attention and sharing that attention with others. That's a great way to sort of stand out. But what are some other challenges?
The expense again of just minting is obviously, at the moment a big issue, and Koi's been working on that. He talked about the attention economy. That attention factors into my work a lot. The idea that once you pay attention to something, you enter into a relationship, and just because you look away doesn't mean that relationship ends. In fact, in some way, you're inextricably tied to that which you paid attention to. So I love that there's a platform that rewards attention. There's a whole economy around it, which gets really interesting when you start doing things like embedding NFTs with DAOs, whether, for the sake of voting rights or fractionalized ownership. And, there is a value. And I think platforms like Facebook and others, they don't understand the value of attention, and they think of it as this thing that's fleeting. That once you pay attention to something, the moment your eyeballs leave, it's like, okay, well, that guy's worthless now. No. You're like a sleeper cell waiting to be re-engaged, or that value doesn't go away. So I think that's really, really powerful idea to put value, immeasurable value. It's probably priceless on attention. Because it's, once somebody's inoculated with that, it gets kind of creepy, actually. It's sort of like the person you date, just because the relationship's over. Oh, no, it's never over. So but I like that Koii is addressing the attention economy.
Yeah, agreeing with Kevin, it's a lot of the cost of minting, because I'll tell you, I went through a lot of things early on trying to find a platform, and what it's about is finding a platform that would give the artist authenticity to show that this is your work, and that's what we didn't have before. You could have a fake Van Gogh that was sold for millions, and it cost you $30,000 or $300,000 to prove that it was authentic, and then you find out it's a fake and all of that. So I think one of the things that we got happening right now is just the authenticity, and a lot of this has been going on for a while, not only with NFTs, but if you look back to my good old buddy Andy Warhol, I mean, copy and paste. That's what he did with the soup can, Campbell's soup can. That was a copy and paste deal by his advertising company that he worked for, and there was a whole big thing with that. And I think that one of the things that artists have to start thinking about is their copyright to it, that when they sell it, that they want to sell it but still own it, that perhaps maybe part of that might be in giving that copyright away. And one of the things that I really think you were saying and showing Koii some love, where I'm involved with Koii, is not only because of their price, but because of their forward thinking on this attention economy, that there's some things that I would love to mention, but won't mention here just because of people listening in, that I would like to explore, and I think Koii would be a good place to explore, is they have a wide open playing field where there still is quite a few more things that they can do and bring in down the road.
I'd just like to add, while we're talking about this, the coolest thing, I think, and it really speaks to the immediate future of the NFT space in general, is with all these emergent blockchains, many of them do have a place, is the ability to bridge between them. And Koii, I know they've been working on this for such a long time, and it's continuing to evolve. But you can mint on Koii now, and your assets are nicely secured on the permaweb on Arweave. And then if you decide you want to bring that over to OpenSea, which is, you've got to be on the Ethereum blockchain, but you can lock it up in a contract and then create it's like wrapped ETH, basically. It's like wrapping it up.
Exactly.
And that is not easy, right, Kevin? I mean, we're not talking about connecting highway systems. We're connecting, seaways and bridges and tunnels and highways all together.
Yeah.
So
oh no, there's some heavy lifting for sure. And imagine if you want to do this now across 6 different chains. But these bridges are critical.
Yeah, most definitely, guys. Well, as you look ahead and you think about what's next for NFTs, the impact on culture, finance, other categories, what's most interesting or exciting to you about this next phase? Kevin, what do you think?
The next phase?
Yeah.
I don't know if I've already mentioned it, but it's about redefining the relationship between the collector and the art. Traditionally, this has been something of a passive, very predictable relationship where someone collects a piece of art and then you put it on your wall, it's going to be there tomorrow. No surprise. I like the idea that you imbue the work with either artificial intelligence, collective intelligence, or some other programmatic behavior, or some sort of feedback mechanism, so that when you wake up tomorrow, you're surprised. You're like, oh wow, I didn't expect that. It's not predictable, and it's an enduring journey that evolves over time. And then you have to ask your question: do you collect the art, or does the art collect you? When it starts applying psychological levers upon you that that modifies your behavior. Like, for instance, you might otherwise have divested yourself of a piece of work, but if the intrinsic value is amplified to such an extent, you don't want to get rid of it. Well, then who owns who?
That's it. So, yeah, Romero, let's close out with you, brother. What do you think?
Yeah, one thing I'd really like to get in there at the end is I think that the art should be shareable. That's one thing that we don't do. A lot of people hide the art in their home. So what I'm doing and working on is a way to make the art shareable, and that's with a little link that looks something like this. I'm just waiting for this to load up here, and of course, oh, okay, here we go. So That's what I'm looking to do, is make a way. Don't hide the art in your house because it's in your wallet and so on. Let's make a way where we can just share this. Because see, as long as we know on this Koii record, I'm the owner, I can share it with anybody all over the planet. I invite everybody to look at it, copy it, print it if you want. Hey, we all still know that I'm the owner.
That's it. Break down barriers, share with the world, build community. If that ain't punk, I don't know what is. Guys, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it. And look forward to continuing the conversation offline.
Yeah, thanks guys.
care.
And if
Thanks.
you know, folks want to keep hearing conversations between us and some of the leaders in the space, encourage you to check out Edge of NFT. It's edgeofnft.com, and we had Al on the show, and we have many other pioneering leaders on the show having great conversations like this. So thanks guys.
Thank you.
Take care,
Thank you.
guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye for now.
Hello, everybody. We're just going to get started in just a second here for the second panel of the day.
All right.
Hi, Simon.
Hey, BJ.
I'm having a little audio here, issue here. Let me just make sure I can hear the panel, because that'd be hard to conduct a whole panel.
Right.
Simon, where's the Yankees hat?
I don't know it was a requirement. Find it. Will it add to the persona? If so, I'll go get it.
Okay. I'm going to go get some headphones just to make this easier.
We can hear you fine. You can't hear us?
Yeah, I guess when I'm coming in.
Mic, settings, audio. Okay, testing. All right, well, that worked. Okay, can everybody hear me now?
Yes, we can.
All right, now I can hear you too. All right, we're off to the races. I'm sorry for that delay here. First time using this StreamYard option. So today we're going to have the panel number 2 for the Koii Narcissus Garden Party. It's called Points on the Board, Tokenizing Sports. I'm Brendan Joyce. I'm the co-founder of LeagueHead's Fantasy Sportsbook game, and I'm also an advisor to Koii. And today I'm honored to be joined by an all-star lineup of blockchain in sports experts. So leading off, we have Simon Grunfeld. Simon is a partner at Akimona. Am I pronouncing that correct, Simon?
Absolutely, yeah. Good job.
Great. A partner at Akimona. It's a crowdfunding platform that turns fans into investors by issuing security tokens for teams and leagues. I'm really fascinated to hear more about that. He's also a senior operations consultant at Koii, the creators of Vivi. I believe that's how you say it, or is it Veve?
No, it's Vivi.
Vivi, good. I'm getting them all right today. The leading mobile-first NFT platform with over 250,000 users and 400,000 digital collectibles sold. Next up to bat, we have Mike Adler. Mike brings over 20 years of experience working with high-scaling, venture-backed, and mature companies in the sports, media, entertainment, and the emerging technology space. And bringing it home, we have Jim Preisler. Jim is a FINRA licensed broker-dealer for blockchain securities. He's also an expert in how technology intersects with compliance and regulations, such as blockchain technology, finance, and privacy. Thank you guys all for joining us today.
Thank you.
All right, so after that long introduction, Simon, let's kick things off with you. So the utility of NFTs in gaming has already become fairly clear-cut. You have buyable skins and items, as well as collectible character play-to-earn games like Axie Infinity. So now that NFTs are making inroads into sports, what are some lessons from NFTs' early successes in gaming that can be ported over?
Yeah, so I think that overall you're looking at two major fundamental items with regard to NFTs. One, you just kind of mentioned it, is portability. So it's being able to move an NFT from one platform to another. So, imagine in the future where you have assets that were minted on World of Warcraft and are now portable to Minecraft, or even take it a step further where you have assets that are played on Xbox that you can then move over to PlayStation. So what you're doing is through this portability mechanism, you're actually centralizing these decentralized platforms in a way. It's kind of weird, and it's a bit of a weird thought experiment to kind of think about, well, how are you going from one kind of medium to another medium? But really, it's the portability aspect, I think, that is definitely key when it comes to NFTs. The second would be the provenance aspect of it. Provenance meaning the history and origin of those NFTs, of those collectibles. So if you've ever watched an episode of Pawn Stars, you realize that value of these items is not necessarily what it is or what it does, but who has owned it and the story behind it, the history behind it, where it existed before, what kind of names are attached to things. So yeah, I think that those are the two main takeaways as far as how NFTs are making that migration slowly into the sports industry.
Got it. Interesting. All right. And so for Mike or Jim, are there any critical distinctions between gaming, which is primarily a virtual entertainment experience, and sports, which even though we might be watching it at home, it's more of a visceral, let's say, meat space experience? Are there any distinctions between the two that you see require a sort of a different strategic approach as NFTs make their way into sports?
Well, the social aspect of both is very similar. I mean, obviously, you've seen one of the big growth areas for online games and games in general is you see the advent of things like Twitch, like kids watching how to play the games and all this kind of stuff. So those social aspects to these games themselves are very applicable to any type of entertainment, sports being, I think, a key one. So I think we're going to see a lot of the convergence there. The digitization of a lot of the information and the content, making it consumable and shareable in new ways. And whether it's NFTs and art or things like that, but also just creates new opportunities, because it also creates opportunities for speculators to come into the space, people who want to change the way things are financed coming into the space. I mean, if you look at a lot of how games and sports teams are financed, you basically spend a lot of money up front. You build stadiums, you build games, you hire players for the teams, whatever it may be. And at the end of it, you hopefully can generate enough money. I think one of the interesting things that this can do is it can flip that whole script on its head, meaning that you can go test the water using these digital aspects of it, see what kind of interest there is in the game, in the league, in whatever it may be, and potentially get the financing up front. So the financing activity of how these things are financed can be dramatically different going forward, in that you have the access to change the capital structures dramatically and change the cash flows of these businesses dramatically. So I think you're going to see this played out, whether it's developing a new game, sharing content within games, creating a new soccer stadium, launching a new league, a sports league, whatever it may be. I think we're going to see a whole level of financial participation that we've never seen before.
So it sounds to me almost like, where the Green Bay Packers are the one team in the NFL owned by the actual fans. We could see that becoming more of a model for maybe more sports or more leagues.
Yeah, and I think it may help some of these more niche leagues get off the ground potentially, where it's been a much heavier lift to get that done in the past. We'll see a spread of not necessarily the NBA, Major League Baseball level, but the tiers below that. We might see a lot more activity. Soccer leagues, soccer academies. I think these are all areas where it's very, very applicable.
I have a friend who he runs the National Dodgeball League. He started it up and then it gained some traction, and I'll see maybe NFTs could be the way for him to take it to the next level.
Yeah, I think that's a winner. A bunch of crypto people playing competitive dodgeball for money. I think that's a grand slam right there.
It beats the prize fighting that I've seen making the rounds on Twitter between crypto luminaries.
Yeah, that always ends badly.
Yeah. All right, Mike, it's your turn to return serve here. So sports have been with mankind for millennia. They predate, the printing press, not to mention the technologies that are more recent, like computers and the internet and now NFTs. How have you seen some emergent technologies revolutionize sports, and what do those disruptions teach us about what blockchain could do going forward?
Sure. I mean, I look at it probably in 4 or 5 different buckets. One is the spectator and how they watch a game on field or even on TV. Massive innovation around camera views, lines on the field. There's a million different things of how a spectator watches a game and how they interact with that game itself. Look at athletes and innovation around, now athletes, look at LeBron James, look at Tom Brady. They're spending millions of dollars on keeping their bodies in top physical shape. And that's done with wearables, sensors, where all different type of athletes are peak performance when it comes to different types of innovations around athletes in itself. And then fitness innovation, as far as all new types of technologies around, mirror, and even how, you get on a Peloton, and every single data point is so critical to how you're going to, get to the next level. Also think around streaming of like OTT. I think from an entertainment standpoint, like I'm a New England Patriots fan. I can never watch a Patriots game unless it was on national TV. Now I can pay for, I can, get anything from DirecTV. I can get any game that I want streamed or any other ways. And then I look at all the evolution around the engagement around how a fan interacts with a sport, with fantasy sports, sports gaming. Those are all different areas that have emerged over the last number of years. But look, to be honest, we all live in an ADD society. Does someone go to a game and they want to sit there and watch, every single play of a football game? There's so much downtime. People go, they tailgate, they're on their phones or they're setting their fantasy lineups. They're tracking, watching different content. So I really think the overarching of everything is about data-driven personalization and how people interact with their teams, with their leagues, with their peers on social networks. So when it comes to blockchain technology and the innovations, it's all back to data-driven marketing and how people interact utilizing data. And with blockchain, I think there's a better way, and even NFTs, to be able to create a one-on-one interaction with your fans, whether they're watching a game on TV, whether they're in stadium, whether they're in a parking lot tailgating. So I do think the innovations and evolution of how blockchain technology can help a fan interact with a game, with a team in a different way is really a lot of the innovations that we've seen. And it's across all different parts of sports.
Yeah, I totally read that there, where it's hard in some ways to project exactly what the full reach or the specific use cases of a breakthrough technology and how it'll branch out within an entire ecosystem like sports. But I do see on the fan side certainly how it will change. But for Simon or Jim, we've touched on fan behavior. How do you think NFTs will sort of reshape the strategic considerations for some of the bigger fish, like sports agencies or the front office of franchises, or even like legacy media players like ESPN?
Yeah, it's just a new way to monetize, the image rights of the athletes and the players, or any type of digitizable IP. And so, it's an effectively new revenue stream. I think where it kind of gets sticky is where and how these things trade. You can trade baseball cards on eBay, right? But once you start making them so they're tradable by second types of transactions, and it looks more like a stock exchange or Binance. I'm pretty confident we're going to see the regulators start to come down on these things, and they're going to deem a lot of those, potentially deem a lot of these marketplaces as securities exchanges. And also we're seeing things like fractionalization of these assets. Like, I can buy a car, but once I split the car into 1,000 pieces and give it to all these different people, I now have a security. So I think, we're seeing an interesting crossover where, these things that were normally, more physical assets are now digitized, and because of that can be more actively traded, they might be crossing over into the securities realm. And, I think we're going to see the regulators crack down on that, particularly when we're seeing things like insider trading, wash trading rampant, painting the tape rampant, all these types of things happening across these exchanges. I think it's inviting a very, very quick regulatory scrutiny.
Yeah, makes sense. Simon, I saw you were about to chime in there too.
Yeah, so I'm not going to talk about the regulatory. Jim is definitely the expert on this call, so I wouldn't do any justice to that. But what I would say is that I think that, I can't remember when it was, but years ago I was sitting at a baseball game, and I was just thinking to myself, well, how can I back an athlete? How can I invest in an athlete? How could I sort of earn some sort of reward by showing some sort of commitment that I would have to that athlete? And NFTs is really the solution, one way or the other, by being able to either take control of a digital asset that represents some kind of either fan engagement or other type of commitment that I have as a fan, then that's sort of like a new relationship that you're able to have directly either with the athlete, with the team, with the league, with the agency, if an agency is representing a basket of athletes and they want to then start issuing out tokens that represent some sort of fractional interest. I think that's really the key. I think that's what is a huge differential in the industry overall between what existed before NFTs and today. And again, not to talk about the regulatory and compliance aspect of it, which I'm sure that we can devote an entire day just covering all those aspects, especially these days where things are very, very turbulent. New SEC chairman who, I've reviewed a lot of his lectures at MIT, definitely knows a lot of the technical and fundamentals, but that aside, Washington will decide whatever they decide. So it's a very interesting discussion to have.
Yeah,
I mean, I'd also interject. I think really it comes down to the utility value, and we're in the first inning of this NFT of the NFT space, and I think the utility value, which every day we're learning new things, I think that's really what's going to drive the future of NFTs. For example, digital ticketing or digital collectibles around tickets, or being able to collect certain items, and that unlocking value in a stadium. Unlocking value, if you're a specific fan and from a personalization standpoint, say I'm a Tom Brady fan, or, I have 3 or 4 of his collectibles, I'll walk in the stadium, that can unlock value to get a jersey. Those are just like very high level rudimentary use cases, but there's going to be, thousands of different use cases that are going to make NFT extremely valuable in the ecosystem going forward.
Totally makes sense. Also, I mean, I've heard about these sort of initial athlete offerings being floated around. I think one actually, some baseball players already done it. And that's where you sort of fractionalize them, get a potential return on your investment in the form of future revenues, contract deals, salaries, big bonuses, and paydays. And I would be very interested, Jim, to hear that. You talk about what the security and the regulatory environment is for that going forward. Whether it's just in terms of individual athletes or somebody looking to build a startup in the space of NFTs in sports. Because I personally, I co-founded a startup about 2012, and it was sports betting, but it was a fantasy sports book. But because that we had a situation where the outcome of the score determined a payout, that was deemed gambling. However, FanDuel and DraftKings navigated a loophole, which is if it's stat-based, even though it's clearly gambling to everybody, they were able to get through regulatorily. So if you were a young innovator wanting to combine your love of NFTs and sports, how would you best position yourself to navigate the Gary Gensler of it all?
Yeah, so I think the big difference here is the velocity of the trading activity that these things entail, right? So these things are instantaneously traded. You could trade an NFT 1,000 times in a second if you wanted to all new buyers, right? So that's where kind of the problem lies here. But when you say taking something where you described investing in somebody, that's going to be a revenue stream that you're going to securitize, and that's very clear. That's going to be under securities regulations. There's a very little wiggle room around that, right? That's what's going to happen. When you trade it on an exchange, that exchange is potentially going to be deemed as a securities exchange as well. Now, if I'm just trading that image of that athlete and I trade it, once a week on eBay, pretty unlikely it's going to be deemed a security, right? It's going to be seen as a collectible item and things like that. It's when you put on something that's like a securities exchange is where you kind of cross the.
Uh-oh.
Oh, I think we might have lost you there, Jim.
Simon, you want to finish that one?
Yeah, you want to handle that, please?
I think he had a whole McGilla there. Jim, you back? Looks like he's frozen.
Uh-oh.
Well,
Okay.
Here's the thing. So yeah, just to expand on a little bit. Whether or not you know about how we test and exactly how the government deems something a security or not, we're really again in the infancy mode, which is that there have been cases like Telegram, for example, that did a unregistered security issuance, and they had to give back over $1 billion to the investors. And nobody who's issuing tokens or security or equity, for that matter, wants to be in that kind of position. So everything has to be done compliantly. There are means to do things compliantly. It's not simple. We're not talking about just releasing a token and then claiming, hey, it's not a security token. You, I, and the people here, we don't really have the privilege of just doing that. We have to, unfortunately, we live in a society that is governed by rules. Here in the US, it's all under the jurisdiction of the SEC and FINRA. So we're all in a position where we have to be cognizant about that. That being said, there are a few platforms, Akamona, for example, one of them, We're Reg CF platform registered with the SEC and FINRA, so we can issue security tokens compliantly under those regulations. We of course have limits, so we work within those limitations. But that's really what it boils down to, just making sure that we're not exceeding what kind of leeway that we have. We do know that, you want to talk about the SEC, and I think, again, that's a completely different discussion to have that can go on and on and on. Who's right, who's wrong, SEC, CFTC, is it a commodity, is it a security? When you put it onto an exchange, does an exchange have to be a registered exchange? I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And so I don't know if we have time for that kind of stuff, but I'd be more than happy to. It looks like Jim is back now.
Yeah, sorry, my StreamYard app crashed, so I had to reboot it.
All good. By the way, this is a good chance to say to all the viewers at home, if you have any questions, please just leave them in the comments, and after this next one, we'll open up the floor to you guys. I mean, obviously the four of us could talk forever, but we also want to hear from you guys for sure. So, Jim, did you have anything you wanted to finish on your point before the streaming sort of played nasty?
Yeah, so I guess the last point was I was at the Sorry Mainnet conference last week, and the SEC was handing out subpoenas. So they were reading speakers at the top of the escalator as they were registering, or before speakers were going on stage, and giving them subpoenas. So I think that's what it's come to these days.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're trying to get that regulatory sandbox so that people feel like they at least have 2 or 3 years to build something, and then if they need to, start lawyering up and operate in such a way that they can begin the $200,000 to $500,000 process of getting all the regulatory hurdles surmounted. But obviously, we're still waiting for that. Maybe Senator Loomis or Toomey will win out there on that regard. We'll see. Knock on wood for all the innovators out there, at least the U.S.-based ones. Although I also know that there's a lot of foreign innovators who look to the SEC and go, well, America is still the golden goose in terms of capital, and they want to make sure that they're compliant and can get their launches in here as well.
Yeah, and just on that aside, places like Hong Kong, clearly China, but even like Hong Kong, which used to be friendly to this, is no more of a safe haven for any of this stuff. So, all the places where people were going, like to talk about fleeing America. Okay, to where? Singapore is cracking down. Hong Kong's cracking down. Like, clearly China shut the door. So, like, where is it they're going to flee to? So I think that's the other interesting aside. I guess everybody could go to El Salvador or something, but I don't know where really the safe haven is.
I mean, Bahamas is looking like it right now, but then again, it might help to have $23 billion personally so that you can buy the island as opposed to have to play by the rules. Simon, I saw a raised eyebrow there. What was...
Well, I mean, if you enjoy going to work in shorts, yeah, absolutely. But you said something that was interesting. So the U.S. is definitely the golden goose, but it's also the golden standard when it comes to regulatory and compliance, and for sort of obvious reasons. And again, we can go into that discussion. But if you're looking to work within the U.S., you've got to work within that framework. Otherwise, just don't touch the U.S. at all, and then just work globally. But again, these are things that have to do with assets that are deemed securities, or at least that there's the notion that it might be deemed security. If you're dealing with NFTs that are well within the boundary of the Howey test, then you definitely have a lot of leeway. If you're not making promises and guarantees that you would normally be able to do with a traditional security, then you're good. Just stay in that lane and just keep going forward. But it's when people try to get a little creative, fractionalizing an NFT, the ownership of it, trying to promise certain things like returns on investments, that's when you're definitely in the wrong territory.
Got it. Yeah, I think also there's something I've seen called reflection awards. I bought a couple of NFTs just to experiment with it, and they did exactly that. It's, we're going to mint 10,000, and each tier will get a certain percentage of future sales. And it's like, it seems Ponzi-nomics to me. You kind of want to avoid that type of stuff. So Leanne here in the comments, thank you, Leanne, for dropping this question here. So she says, have you any suggested use cases in sports, not so futuristic, but what practically could be achieved now? So we've seen collectibles I know Topps just released a collection. Gronkowski did his a while back, as well as Mahomes. What are some other instances that you could see either today or you expect with them next year that will expand what NFTs in sports mean?
Yeah, I think the key differentiator here, and this is a phrase that's very all-encompassing, but it really talks a lot about scalability and growth here. We're talking about fan engagement, and that's something that I think the NFT marketplace is just now kind of like scraping the surface a little bit. Fan engagement looks like, depending on the situation, everything from, just you viewing something to you interacting with, by virtue of holding these digital assets, you automatically get access to VIP perks, enrolling automatically in different types of, raffles and contests, getting one-on-one time with your favorite athlete on the field or on the court, having access to discounts on merchandise, or better yet, having exclusive access to unique drops of merchandise only available exclusively to token holders. So there's an entire realm of fan engagement that, again, we're only now starting to kind of look into. I know that some of the engagements that I'm currently involved in with regard to a few teams, professional teams here in the US, they're seriously looking at different ways to enhance the fan engagement, bring the fans closer to what they're doing, make them feel more part of the process of the training of athletes, of the competition, of the stadium build out, of voting and governance, for example, right? So they want to change certain color schemes, or they want to add a new food to the menu, whatever it is. Just make the fans feel more part of the entire process, and I think that's really a key differentiator.
And they want access to like decision making as well. Some of these tokens will give you the ability to choose your lineups. Like, for example, the All-Star game, 2 or 3 years ago, fans got to choose who they want in the lineup. That's really what sports fans really want, is more of a say in the interactivity of what's going to happen in the future on plays and stuff like that as well.
So almost a DAOification of sports and using NFTs as a communication layer for that, and a data exchange layer for that.
Well, that could work. Look at Candy, for example. They're doing a one-on-one exclusive. They did a Dodgers World Series ring. You got a physical World Series ring. With their stadiums, you also could go and throw out the first pitch. You can sit in, the owner's box. Those are the type of things. Sports fans want the ability to go to a stadium, sit in the front row, get autographs, get handshakes. That's what they're mesmerized by, and that's what people want. People want that experience. And if NFTs can unlock unique experiences that they can't get in the regular world, they're going to be extremely powerful, and it's going to happen. And we're right at the beginning of that happening.
Something that's interesting that I think NFTs also can open up is fans of sports teams tend to be a little bit more competitive than the average individual. And in some ways, you could have NFTs turn fandom itself into a competitive arena, where let's say you have an app like a Monkey Knife Fight or some other app where you are competing as a second screen experience, and you rack up NFTs the same way that you would rack up trophies or skins or kills in a video game. And you start to see, this person, within the Chicago Bears fan ecosystem is the best Bears fan type of thing. So I'm very intrigued by how the NFT and really the blockchain process of connecting fans to the experience can actually elevate fans into a new level of fandom that we have yet to see before. So
one example there is, like Simon, I am an advisor to VV, and I've been working with them for 2 years. And we were talking to the Verizon Innovation Lab, and they were looking for ways to utilize 5G technology, but they had a 100-page deck, and they had 10 pages of that deck on digital collectibles and how you can unlock things within stadiums. So, for example, within an app, one side of the field could open up one collectible, on the other side of the field, another collectible. You could tap and do races, like in-game experiences. I think that's going to happen, and those things can be unlocked in a very unique way utilizing NFTs, for sure.
Very interesting. Well, we have, I think, just about 2 minutes left here. So it's time to start wrapping it up. So I want to end with a roundtable question and get each of your answer on it. And so let's imagine that it's about 10 years from now, it's 2030. Paint me a quick picture of how I'm going to be using NFTs to amplify my connection to my favorite team.
I would say, again, fan engagement, and that has a little bit of it's a loaded answer, honestly, because it's everything from what Mike just talked about with how I interact and the options that are available to me as a fan, as a sports fan, when I get to games or if I'm just watching games online, whatever it is. But then it goes beyond that. Let's talk about gaming or mobile gaming and how teams and leagues are able to now tokenize to some degree, their name, image, likenesses, their branding. And let's take it a step further and talk about how, as some of us as kids used to trade cards and other collectible items back and forth. Well, what does that mean also to the world of sports tokenization? How are you going to see this as being a reality? Again, keeping into account all the different regulatory hurdles that exist, but can I trade team tokens, league tokens, sports tokens that represent interest in athletes with other fans? Does the fan have to be US based? No, it could be anybody from around the world. But now you're expanding globally. It's not just, you're not limited by just your physical ability to being there, but now you're expanding your ability to bring in new fans, and not just sports fans. Keep in mind, this is a crypto universe, okay? So if you're able to tokenize something, you're now opening up your fan base to not just those people that are fans of your underlying offering, if it's soccer, football, baseball, whatever it is, but now you're catering to crypto enthusiasts, crypto fans, people that maybe were kind of, interested in what you're doing, but now that you have a crypto product behind it, hey, you have just opened up an entirely new segment that did not exist before.
There we go. Mike, what's your take?
I would look at a fully immersive VR environment where you can open up 2 NFTs or within a VR environment, and you can go down the field and catch a pass from Tom Brady. Or within a metaverse, fully immersive, you can get into a Formula One race car, and I can race it around a track, competing against Simon in a fully immersive environment. I think that's
You don't
really
want to do that.
So we're already at basically Ready Player One levels.
Yeah.
Got it.
100%. But further than that, with full VR technology, there's going to be some really cool things that you can do, with, unlocking NFTs in the future of an immersive environment, for sure.
I get it. Yeah, I mean, earlier today, the Koii crew, they were unveiling their Narcissus flower in one of the Decentraland galleries, and to me, that's the tip of the iceberg down the in the version of the future that you've laid out there. And I can't wait to get there. Jim, last but not least.
Yeah, so while I'm driving Mike's car wearing Simon's avatar in the death race during the annual purge, as we all struggle for food and water, I'll be able to vote on the points and the players and even own a piece of the car. So, I think the cool thing about this is that this creates a whole new level of interactivity. And we'll see things that are particularly boring, think of how you can do, to wrap up a couple of answers, like ticketing. Like, I used to be able to get a Super Bowl ticket, I could put it up on the wall, but that Super Bowl ticket now can be something much more fun, interactive, have a gamification aspect to it, and then potentially be worth a lot down the road, depending on what happens in the game, what unique events happen, and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's just creating a whole new interactivity that people haven't really had before. And hopefully the end result will people will get closer to their teams and feel more integrated into the experience.
Absolutely. Well, that's time for us. I want to thank Koii for putting on this event, and obviously I want to thank Simon, Jim, and Michael. It has been illuminating for me, and so I assume also for the viewers. And I can't wait to see how you guys build the future of the convergence of NFT and blockchain and sports going forward. Thanks so much, guys, for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Take care.
All right. Bye.
Jeffrey, I think you're muted. Jeffrey, can you hear me? I think you're muted.
I am. Thank you very much, Kayla.
Yeah,
hello, everybody. How's everybody doing?
Good, thanks.
Wow.
Good. This is the third panel of the day, blockchain accessibility, opening doors around the world. It's great to see you all. Maybe we'll start off. Can everybody introduce yourselves? Start with Kayla.
Hi, my name is Kayla. I am the creative director and co-founder for the Koii Network, and we are very excited to have you all here for this wonderful event we're putting on today.
Thank you. Who wants to go next?
I guess I could jump in there. Apologies for my voice. I've been fighting off a bad cold.
How
My name
dare
is John
you.
O'Sullivan. I'm the business development manager for Project ARC. We are partnered with the World Wildlife Fund, and we're looking to use NFTs to empower animal and environmental conservation efforts around the world.
Cool.
Hi, everyone. I am Charu. I lead marketing at Unique Network. Unique Network is the NFT chain for Polkadot and Kusama ecosystem. Glad to be here, and thanks, Koii, for doing this.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me all right?
Can hear you. Yes.
All right, great. I am happy to be here. My name is Jeremy. I'm the founder and CEO of Leyline. We're focused on building an ecosystem and leveraging NFTs for social good and gamifying life. That's the dream, at least. We're happy to talk about it, though. Thank you for having me.
Right on. All right. So when I think of opening doors, the word that comes to my mind is inclusion. Not necessarily something that blockchain has been historically great at, but it seems to be getting better. Maybe we can start off with Charu. Have you noticed any impactful things in the past few years that have changed this space, opened more doors for people?
Yes. So I think at a fundamental level, I believe that democratizing of technology is as important as it is for utilities. We may not think of it like that, but I truly believe so. And enabling access will actually deliver strategies, and access strategies for future will deliver future growth. And the key idea is to lower barriers to access and dissemination of information, which is very key. And the fundamental idea of democratic financial governance is in the DNA of many public blockchains. If you compare it to traditional technologies, you do see that there is a lot of access to information and to learn in this industry, but there are still concepts and platforms that are highly asymmetric today that have immense potential if leveled. And you can make them totally symmetric, and in doing so, you get a lot more people to the starting line. Starting from the early years of Bitcoin and Ethereum, where only people who understood the white paper could really, take a step forward. But over the years, there are platforms that have developed, and I would love to later share what we are doing at Unique Network in terms of really breaking down the barriers and enabling access. So there is constant change every day. You see new projects that are closer to mass adoption or are going in that direction. So definitely there's a lot that's changing.
Mm-hmm. Jeremy, same question. Who's being left at the table and why? Add that in there.
Yeah, I certainly think that there's both this enormous opportunity and enormous problem when it comes to folks that are being left behind in this whole digital revolution. And in my eyes, it's really the working poor and developing nations. Which is very much so why, our organization is very focused on trying to plant the right seeds and bring the right access and education into these specific areas. So currently, Leyline, we're actually partnered with NGOs in Haiti, South Africa, Botswana, and Indonesia, and really targeting how do we actually bring the right education, access, and opportunity into these communities to basically leapfrog into this new world of abundance. What we've encountered so far is really just these four big categories of challenges that are blocking inclusion. Charu was really spot on with access being like the number one. If you don't have any infrastructure to get access into the internet or have the devices available, you're stuck. There's like no way you can even begin. So that's the first layer of just getting there. But even once you provide the access, what kind of education and support is in place for that? So, you know, whether they understand what crypto even is, but how do they even, you know, when they're first given access to the internet, what are the safe ways to protect your identity and to secure passwords and your seed phrases? There's like very basic fundamental educational requirements to even get people into this space. The third layer is the UX. So the user experience is also very difficult. Like it's really confusing to get into this space and understand, like, you know, what's my MetaMask? What's the cold wallet? Like, what's the hot wallet? Like all these things are quite complicated. And I do think this is going to improve over time because there are startups after startups that are looking to create a much more seamless experience and make that onboarding much smoother and automated. And then the fourth bit is utility. So now the final question is, okay, what am I going to do in this space? Now that I've got access, now that I understand, I've set up my wallet, is the activities here actually valuable to me in some way? Am I finding this connection or meaning and purpose? And then am I having fun? So I feel like we're now at this stage of, you've got to get that whole vertical stack ready for getting this big adoption.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to circle back to some of those things in a little while, especially on the what can we do to reduce friction side. I know one of the big ones for me for 10 years now is even explaining something as simple as what gas is, right? Like, why do I have to pay this fee every time I interact with something on chain? And just the whole process of explaining that to people is it's a bit mind-bogglingly difficult, actually. Kayla, what is Koii noticing in terms of the diversity in the space, and how are you guys working to change some of that?
Well, so there's a lot going on. Charu and Jeremy have touched on a lot of the problems there. One of the things that we find as a big problem in this space is that if you want to create something in blockchain, like, yes, we need to work on a lot of UX and diversity of access, like infrastructure for users. But if people want to build a blockchain app, they have to spend 3 to 6 months learning Solidity or another one of those of the Web3 like blockchain languages for smart contracts and all of that. And one of the things that we're really focused on, our SDK, our software development kit, is completely in JavaScript. So anybody who is a developer who knows JavaScript can come in and start building on Koii and can make like a very easy app. Like we're saying, you know, build a Facebook competitor in 5 minutes or less is like the goal for us with the templates that we're building. But if you know, just got out of school or took a boot camp and you know JavaScript and you want to make something really cool, you shouldn't have to put another year of work in order just to begin building something that will give ownership back to all of your users and let more people have control over their content.
Mm-hmm. John, how about you?
Sorry. So the question is, what am I seeing in terms of accessibility in the space then?
Yeah. Who's being left at the table? I mean, it's a lot of guys that look like us, right?
Yes, absolutely. So one of the nice things at Project Arc and Carbon Base, our parent company, is that I think we speak about 12 languages with 13 different countries. Diversity of thought creates a much better product, especially when it comes to blockchain, given that your demographic and your potential user is anyone and everyone with the internet. So one thing that we're really trying to do at Project Arc, which is being led by a new initiative, is the Impact NFT Alliance. So we're looking for any and all Web3 actors to come together and really start, sharing knowledge and resources, tools, and network, because we're of the opinion that if you're looking to create positive, impact in the world via blockchain NFTs, then we're not in competition with one another. We should be able to lift all boats together. And I do feel that having a more central repository of these people and these contacts and these initiatives is going to be half the battle when it comes to, new actors understanding the space. And another thing that I think is very exciting is that, impact NFTs can be a major actor for people even entering the DeFi space. It's incredibly hard to understand NFTs. It's much more hard to understand some of the other DeFi things that are coming in. But this is the first step for many. So, I do believe also that the permeation of more fiat on-ramps is a big one. as more people are able to just get set up very frictionlessly. That's something we're working on with our partner Simplex. So I would invite anyone and everyone on stage and who's watching to check out impactnft.org and see if we can all partner together to help make this space more accessible.
I think something that interestingly nobody mentioned, but I think is also worth talking about is the unintentional perhaps, but inherent ageism in the space. What can we do and is it even necessary to open these doors more to people that are not necessarily technologically savvy at all, like grandma's first smartphone? Does grandma need to trade NFTs? I don't know.
So one of the things that we see moving forward is that in the future, you aren't even going to know that you're using a blockchain app. It's just going to be an app that's easy to use. That's where the UX comes in. You know, my grandma used Facebook before she passed. You know, if my grandma can use Facebook, my grandma can use the future of blockchain apps, right? As long as we are making it super easy. I know our founder, Alex, he founded a company called WeTeachBlockchain.org, and part of the process for that was like actually explaining things to his grandmother and seeing where she had issues and like how do you educate somebody who didn't grow up like I did, you know, getting on AOL Internet Messenger or Instant Messenger, you know, in middle school. So there is educational components, but that needs to be woven into what we are creating as part of like onboarding and everything like that, that somebody makes it so easy for them to use, because it is a big problem, as you're saying, just getting people who are less technologically savvy into the space. I try to explain to my parents what I do at Koii, and they just like, you know, goes over their heads and says
glaze over, right?
a little bit. And using, you know, I can test on my parents to see like, okay, what do you understand, and use that as a framework for educating the wider world.
Anybody else thoughts on age in the space?
I think in terms of age, I know the age bracket that we know of in the industry is young, is vibrant. But at the same time, I want to highlight one of the partnerships we announced with UN Habitat and Glocha around an digital art for climate initiative. This was targeted mainly at youth. And I know we have a lot of young artists who are in the NFT industry, but how about the young artists who don't have access to computers or to digital art tools? So we wanted to take that initiative to those young artists who need to be included in this. And so the aim was to empower artists, designers, and activists worldwide to create art that can inspire people to take action against the global climate crisis. So this initiative was sort of two elements, and we were very focused on breaking down the barriers to entry on both the elements. The first, as I said, was an art competition. So we decided that we will accept any art. It can be traditional art, as long as it's visual art. We will accept that and tokenize that into, and that will be able to participate in the art competition. And the second part was building an NFT marketplace for this initiative. So Unique Network is building an NFT marketplace for this initiative, but we decided that we will invite young UX and UI designers to build this marketplace. And one of the conscious decisions was to build our platform. So Unique Network is sort of an infrastructure and middleware provider for building any NFT ecosystem. And the conscious choice that we made is anyone who is a UX UI designer and doesn't know blockchain can still spin up a NFT marketplace in a matter of few hours. So we ran a design-a-thon, a competition to invite UX UI designers to build build the front end, and they know nothing about blockchain. So we enable them with basic knowledge, and they are working on creating that marketplace where the young artists from across globe, from across UN Habitat communities will be participating in. And it's very interesting to see the teams that came together for Designathon were from the winning team, one participant from France, one from Nigeria, Uganda. We were just so overwhelmed to see the participation, and that was because they didn't need to know what blockchain is, and that's the mission we want to take forward and focus on.
I think this is a great segue into just generally speaking a little bit about the social good that all of you are doing in the space, and that all of us can learn from and perhaps participate in. Jeremy, I know that with Leyline, you guys are incentivizing basically charitable actions. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, so to get to the heart of what we're building, we're establishing we're calling a proof of good protocol. And the platform that we've set up is really to connect with any social impact organization, whether you're a charity or a nonprofit or NGO, academic institution. And so what we want to do is have these real world validators of people that are volunteering and contributing, whether it's donating money or time or blood or, clothes, any amount of acts of good. We want to have this, network of trusted third parties that can validate that, and then build a community and a DAO that holds that set of trusted third parties accountable
Who are these third parties? Can you elaborate a little bit about who they might be?
Yeah. So, one of our first partners when we first prototyped was actually UC Berkeley with a project called BOINC, which is a distributed computing, research network. And so we're able to build an API to connect and validate, okay, how many hours of computing power people are donating to cancer research and climate change research and COVID research. So we ended up building this validation method where users were passively doing good and earning as a result. And then we realized and learned, oh, wow, there's a whole story to tell here about people and the good that they do. And this to me is like the solve for, or not solve, but rather an additional critical value to put into these NFTs, where anybody can generate art these days and music these days. In fact, AI is already doing that for us. So one of the things that we're going to find meaning and value in purchasing NFTs is actually the human story behind it. What kind of impact have you had? And whether or not the NFTs have this transparency and traceability to a real world positive impact. I think one of the challenges we have is we're kind of escaping into this digital metaverse. And then in doing so, we forget about the problems of reality and we lose empathy and priority on like, oh my God, we got to stop the climate change crisis, guys. So, what we want to do is like, we don't want to, take this binary approach. We should actually integrate them together so that incentive model in the metaverse is still flowing back to the real world and actually making a big impact. And in fact, giving back is like probably the number one thing for happiness. So I think like human, well-being and value needs to be intrinsically tied in to this NFT ecosystem that's exploding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm a big proponent of the idea that the key to happiness is really a combination of three things. It's personal health, wealth, and community, the interactions that we have with each other and how we take care of each other. It's interesting. I feel like what Koii is working on ties in very closely to what Leyline is doing with the Narcissus flower and the act of going and observing an NFT and how that changes things. Maybe you can talk a little bit, Kayla, about ways that you guys are doing things similar or ways that you're different from what Leyline's working on, how these things can connect.
We've actually been speaking with Leyline about a possible partnership as building on top of Koii and integrating because we are very focused on rewarding people for the work that they create and art, because kind of what you were saying, Jeffrey, about the things that make people happy. Like to me, I have a background in theater, and to me, making art for other people to experience and creating empathy and like art, more art in the world makes people better, because it, like I said, can further your empathy. It can make you happy. It can make you feel emotions that we don't necessarily feel every day. So we do want to have projects like Leyline building on top of Koii, so that not only are you rewarded for doing good in the form of creating art and making the world a better place, but actually doing acts of service and other, charitable donations and your time and all of that. You should be rewarded for doing things that matter. And so Leyline's mission fits very strongly as a company that we would love to be working with us and building on top of the Koii network, using our node network and all of that. And so we are in talks already about making a partnership happen.
We're gonna make it happen, Kayla.
Yeah,
we're bringing those atomic NFTs for sure. We got some exciting stuff cooking up. So stay tuned, everybody.
Yeah, it's a secret.
Right on. So I wanna maybe examine something you said there, Kayla. So to me, there's a, I don't know if I'd call it a problem, but there's definitely a proliferation of art in a more commercial sense rather than art for art's sake. And this it's so interesting to be creating something or potentially creating something where it does still have those commercial aspects, but it is engaging people in a way that is good for the soul, I suppose, in a way. So I just want to say I think that's really interesting. John, do you have some thoughts on using this technology for social good?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we're all pretty much working with the same relative goal, right? We want artists that are passionate about telling a story that can change the way people, reflect on their role in the natural world, want to learn more, educate, and bring other people into the community. You want to connect them with collectors that are purpose-driven, that want something that's inherently unique, valuable, but also they can make money off from the secondary market. We still have to remember that this is a marketplace. And then the third is, these impact projects themselves. One thing that I found interesting was that, the vast majority of conservation organizations around the world right now are struggling to get money. They're all in competition with one another for the next round of grant funding that's getting cut off. You can't hold fundraisers. This provides an opportunity to put another tool in their toolkit to really diversify their funding streams. But beyond that, why do we spend $20 on a cause? Often because we're guilted into it through a very sad commercial or something we scroll by. We can do better than that. We can change the narrative, right? Art is political. We can inspire, we can educate, we can really connect with people. So one of the key things that, just as an example, we're looking to do in our partnership with Chainlink is create quote unquote living art. We want the NFT to reflect the situation on the ground. So if it's rainy, it's rainy. If it's sunny, it's sunny. If it's a herd of elephants we're supporting and they give birth, we drop a little baby in there. If it's a coral reef and God forbid the reef bleaches, then we'll bleach the NFT, because people need to feel a constant feedback loop with the actual outcomes on the ground. And that ties into, blockchain transparency itself. So I don't think, everybody who doesn't really know the NFT space says, oh, you're flipping JPEGs. Well, there's so much more that the technology can do. For example, we're actually using blockchain NFTs right now to facilitate the transfer of endangered species for one of the largest conservation organizations in Africa. So it'll be the largest move of any endangered species ever conducted in human history. And once that happens, we can embed satellite imagery and data into the back end to actually give somebody who owns that NFT, which represents that animal, a feeling of, kinship and connectivity with what the impact of their dollar was. Another example is, or one other thing I think is important as well, is the role of corporations in this space. I really think that corporate social responsibility in the blockchain NFT space is an inevitable. We recently had a project which supported 4 organizations for Lay's PepsiCo, and we intend to go far, far deeper. We have a number of projects in place where we can even use NFTs to prevent the oil exploration of large swaths of land as purchased by corporations. That acts as a part of their corporate social responsibility. One thing that I think is cool is that you can get a lot more bang for your buck if you use it as your CSR. Because right now you spend $1 million, you send it to the marketing team, washes over your consumer. They say, good for you, you're greenwashed or whatever. But with an NFT, you can get people to buy into it. You can get people to actually co-create, co-brand, and be boots on the ground for you, part of this cause. So I think that the technology is really just in its infancy, and it's like drinking water through a fire hose with all the new information that comes out every day. But I'm excited to see where the sector goes, because we're going to be able to engage people on a whole new level.
Cool. So something just came into my mind, so I thought I'd ask. And this is just for everybody. Is there something inherently bad about, or maybe not bad, but potentially a complex situation to deal with down the road, about creating assets that a lot of people are buying for a financial incentive, regardless of whether or not the assets themselves are being used to do some social good? Is there a risk there, in the sense that these assets might at some point devalue? What happens if you have an NFT that is, save the rainforest, and it's doing this great work and tracking all the trees that are being cut down, but then the NFT itself, one day you wake up and the floor is suddenly like nothing, and nobody cares anymore. What happens then? Is that something to worry about?
And from our perspective, this is something we're concerned about. We discuss with every day. We're even, what about perverse incentives of tying, rarity of a species in the wild with an actual rarity in an NFT? God forbid no one will go out and shoot an animal to make their NFT worth more money, but it is one of the possibilities, right? So we're cognizant of this, and I think you meet a lot of people's opinions across the spectrum. Some are very purist. Some are, the old school crypto guys that really just, they want to make money. I think until we have mass adoption and, the social impact side of NFTs are still primarily, and it's sad to say, not going to be one of the number one motivators for people to purchase these. So I think we have to be very realistic in our expectations. We have to be very cognizant of what the demographic is, because I think that we may feel like we're playing ball with some characters now, but at the end of the day, we need to do this to be the forerunners of the space when we do finally have this mass adoption, this critical mass in NFT use. So I think it's our duty to just be very cognizant of the risk, to mitigate them as they come up, and to steward the communities in such a way that we are doing our absolute best to work with the best actors out there.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to add in as well. And John, I think you hit the nail on the head for sure. And some of the ways that I also see that too is that, I think financing and economics are an absolute necessity in order for you to have like an organization and a platform and a business that has some kind of sustainability and longevity. You need the financial support to keep the lifeblood of the engine going. And so it is just one of the unfortunate realities of the world we live in today, is that money makes the world go round. So you need an element of financing in any project. But there's a separate layer there, because you have an investor cohort that's looking at projects, evaluating and figuring out, okay, does this thing have legs? Does it have a good team? Does it have a good community? Yes, I'll back this, because not only is the purpose great or I love the product, but I feel like this is going to go somewhere. I'm going to gain, I'm going to invest in it and then gain assets out of it or gain wealth out of it. But the most important piece is the community, the actual users, the people that are running the platform, using the platform, and invested it with real skin in the game. I think that's the most important cohort to look at. And that's where investors pay attention to, is oh, how strong is that community? Are they going to stick with this thing? Are they seeing value come out of it? That is the most critical piece. And I think the solution for this to be sustainable and to avoid things like rug pulls and bad actors is transparency and accountability. And that happens, one, inherently because we're open source for a vast majority of what we're building, but two, because of DAOs. And I think DAOs are going to have the most important impact possible for all of society. So essentially, to me, every single project eventually has to move into a DAO, because they're going to be forced to have transparency. And then with the transparency is accountability. And with accountability, you need governance. So I think the financial aspect is how we kind of kickstart projects in this movement, but then it elevates and matures into governance itself and decentralized governance.
Mm-hmm. It looks like we're running up right against the last minute or two of our panel here. So I just have one more question, I guess, for all of you, but let's start with Charu. What do you see NFTs being used for in the future? Is generative art all they're good for? Is there more of a utility side? What are some other ways that maybe we aren't using NFTs now, but we will?
Yeah, I think what we see now is one use case that digital art represented. I mean, NFTs representing digital art, and even within that, there is so much movement. For example, NFTs for charity, and from that, it moved on to a living, breathing representation of an endangered rhino. So there is progress there. But going into the future, I believe that this will evolve into very different use cases. They may or may not be called NFTs, but the one clear trend that I see coming together is the marketplaces of tomorrow's and the tokenized assets. I think COVID has given such huge demand shocks to the marketplaces of today that it may forever change patterns. So I believe that NFTs coming along with e-commerce is going to shape into something pretty spectacular. And it's like, giving a Web 2 experience to Web 3 technologies. That's where I see it going.
Mm-hmm. Kayla?
So I'm just going to tease the next panel a little bit because it is called Utility in NFTs. So stay tuned. We're going to talk about that for another 30 minutes. But the way that we see NFTs, like the atomic NFT standard that we've developed, is the fundamental building block for the future of the internet. Because as people are building decentralized apps, social media competitors, like anything like that, whatever you put onto the internet will be an atomic NFT. And so you will always get the rewards from the things that you've put out. But just generally, everything will be built upon this fundamental unit. I agree, Charu. I don't think that they're going to be called NFTs forever. But this is the very basic unit from which we can build, the things that we haven't even imagined yet.
Mm-hmm. John?
I'll just give one example of one that we're working on a corporation for. Let's say you wanted to build the world's largest underwater art exhibit that turns into a living, breathing coral reef. So you pay as a corporation for, that concrete and metal infrastructure. And then you NFT for $25-50 a pop, each one of the 10,000 corals that are planted right on it right there. It's going to take 2 years. We're going to update everyone via that NFT on chain. You now have a community of 10,000 purchasers. It empowers the local community. It creates biodiversity. It's a carbon heat sink. And it impacts a number of SDGs. And then that company itself now, anyone who's an NFT holder can dive that reef for free, can be taken on a tour. And now you have literally a little piece of history, because some of these corals that people are creating have never even existed in human history before, because they're splicing the genetics to be more climate change resilient. So these are examples of a corporation being able to use its CSR project to legitimately develop a constant feedback loop with a new community that cares about something that it now can film at, shoot at, dive at, do whatever you want, and it'll live there for hopefully thousands of years to come. So that's just one example, and I think we're just scratching the surface, as I mentioned.
I'm being told that we got to end the panel right now. I'm really sorry, Jeremy. I don't think you're going to get the last word here. All right. Well, thank you, everybody.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye,
everyone.
everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. Hey, Lisa. Thanks so much. Can you hear me okay? Hello? Hi.
Hello.
Hey, Lisa. Thanks so much. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. How's my audio? Can you hear me?
I can. Hi.
Hello.
Hey, Lisa. I'm experiencing a little bit of a lag. Can you hear me okay? Echo.
Yeah. How's my audio? Can you hear me?
I can. Hi.
Hello.
Hey, Lisa. I'm experiencing a little bit of a lag.
Okay, I think
How's my audio? Can you hear me?
getting that better. Okay, can you hear me?
Hey, Greg.
Hey. Sorry, for some reason it was my speaker started as the monitor, not even my laptop, the monitor. But that seems to be fixed now. Let me pop you over here so that I'm looking at you. And let me turn my camera on. There we go.
Perfect. Good to see you.
Balloons. Okay.
Okay. I'm not sure. I'm just waiting for confirmation that we're good to get going here. I think we might be waiting on thumbs up. Okay, great. So I'm gonna begin. Thank you both for agreeing to come on here. I think we're just here to talk a bit about kind of put a cap on, I guess, a rich day of panels already. I wanted to extend thanks to everybody who came on for the earlier panels, debating things like whether NFTs are really punk, trying to decide how we can put points on the board in terms of sports NFTs. And we just finished off a panel on blockchain accessibility, opening the doors around the world. This panel is about the utility of NFTs, but specifically a forward look into the evolution of NFTs as a technology and what role they have to play in the internet of the future. So I just wondering if we could go around to begin. My name is Colin Zarzer. I'm working as operations lead for Koii, and I'm a lawyer in Canada by training. My background is primarily in corporate like sort of startups and helping them grow, as well as renewable energy blockchains and transaction of energy. But if I could maybe pass it to Greg and then Lisa to do a little bit of an intro for yourselves as well.
Sure. So I'm the CEO, CTO, and founder of Adexo. So we have a cross-chain NFT API. So we kind of rethought how these transactions could happen, like mint transactions, deploy transactions. And we just took the kind of classic wallet out of it and made it so you could do it using an API key. And then we used that same API to do some pretty nifty innovations in terms of minting things on Twitter or Telegram and that kind of thing. So we just recently launched our token last week, and we also just launched today a new product. So lots of stuff that we're doing in the NFT space, specifically a lot around that kind of utility aspect as well.
For sure. That's great. And Lisa, yourself.
Lisa, I think you're on mute.
Awesome. Yeah, so I am Lisa Loud, and I've been in crypto for the past 4. I've unmuted. How's that?
Perfect. Oh, now you muted. Okay.
Okay. All right. Cool. So yeah. So I've been in crypto, and I'm just gonna talk because I think I have a delay on my audio for some reason. Maybe I'll jump out and back in after my intro. I work at Zatara, and I work at Zatara. Zatara is doing NFTs in the sports arena, and we're really envisioning what NFTs will look like in the future, how players can have their own cards, and how brands can use NFTs to engage with their followers and their fans, how players in football, soccer can engage with their fans. So really exciting times. I'm also building an NFT platform. So very much engaged in the nuts and bolts of NFT, what it can be and how we build them.
Perfect. Thank you. So for this question, I'm going to throw it out. We all of our sort of backgrounds touch on NFTs as things that have limited editions, scarcity, or rarity. However, in a digital space, one of the big distinguishing values of working in a digital environment against physical environments is that you actually can reduce problems of scarcity. You can share resources really easily and have not hard caps. What do we think, Greg? I'll pass it to you first. What do we think is the most important factor for the future of NFTs? Open access and plentiful resources, or actually the uniqueness and the scarcity?
Yeah. So, when you look at kind of I come at it from a point of view of looking at like the $88 trillion a year, world economy and how is blockchain actually going to become. So when you talk about the panel, like becoming the next internet, the internet did disrupt every industry, right? And so, I think, instead of focusing on like kind of a narrow problem and you think about the bigger problem, I think there's a lot of industries where that uniqueness, and having this sort of programmable uniqueness and scarcity is important. You don't want to have to each and everyone have the exact same insurance policy, right? So there's aspects to the application of NFTs that I think are just very different from that question, right? And so I don't know if that's really a great answer, but it's sort of like I think that there's aspects to that scarcity that are important for certain industrial applications, and then there's other applications where having this, I guess, with the opposite of scarcity, abundance, is more useful. So it really depends on the industrial application that you're looking at, I think.
Right. And this is like the thing, right? Is that NFTs are essentially like can do two things at once, right? They're not a single homogeneous entity. Al, you've been working pretty extensively with Sam Williams at Arweave, and a lot of the Arweave folks are rather dedicated to the notion of NFTs and digital storage as a public commons rather than a private commons. What do you think that role is that something that does have a big role to play in the future of this new internet, or is that something that's not there yet? We can't really see what that's going to become.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting example, because with Arweave, it's not so much about selling the NFTs as it is about being able to preserve information. And so people are more interested in having their name attached to having created the information than they are about trying to trade them or any kind of like short-term gain. And this creates a different dynamic because there's kind of this like sort of emotional shift, which I think actually, Greg, I know you guys have had huge success with NFTs as like promotional tools and like in just like a way to kind of engage people with what you're doing. Lisa, I'm sure that you understand too with the NFTs in sports. It's like this very strange thing about as long as people feel like they own it, then they have this engagement because they own this thing now and it's theirs. And if they don't have that, then nothing else can ever compare to that, really. That the experience is completely different. So I'm really interested as well in the applications in video games, for example. So you can just totally see it completely shifting the dynamic, and then like the old model just doesn't compete anymore. So it's very exciting. Sorry, I had some AV troubles, which I was a little late.
So you touched on those emotional aspects, Al. I wanted to pose another question. Kevin Abosh in our first panel today said that earlier NFTs are redefining, or in the future will redefine the relationship between an artist or a creator and the collector. What other relationships and actors do you think are going to become more relevant in NFT economies in the future? And I'll offer that one to Lisa to start with.
Yeah, sorry, I've been wrestling with my own audio issues. So I missed some of what you said. Colin, could you just repeat the last part of your question?
Sure. In the earlier panel, when asked about the future of NFTs, Kevin mentioned that he thinks that the relationship between the artist and the collector is the thing that's going to change the most. What other relationships or other actors do you think are going to change dramatically in the future in NFT economies?
Yeah, I really think that what we're at the beginning of is a huge wave in NFTs.
Okay.
What we see as NFTs today, and we've already seen this. We had like the great excitement and everybody jumping on board, and then everybody saying, "Oh no, it's not going to do this." And now, the excitement again. I think those waves, the amplitude of those waves is going to diminish over time. And what will emerge from that is a new concept of what NFTs are. To me, NFTs are, and I said this, it was very controversial. I said this on my last speaking panel, and I said, in some ways, NFTs are nothing new. It's just a new way of expressing what exists already. And somebody completely disagreed with me and said, another panelist, and said, no, that's not true, because there's things you can do with NFTs that you never could do before, which is absolutely also true. What I want people to start understanding and grasping is this idea that NFTs are not completely new. They're just a new expression of something that has existed in our world for a long time. It's this engagement between an artist or a celebrity or a sports person, a sports player, or a brand, a company, and the people who are interested in that. And I love what Al said about owning a little piece of it. What has changed is that before, people could be very much loyal to a brand, but they didn't actually own a little piece of that. I think that's what the twist that we have on NFTs is that now people can actually own a little piece of this. And exactly what you said, Al, when you own a little piece of it, then you care about it more. It's something that is part of you, and you're going to make sure it works.
Right.
I guess Colin, are we handing this around? Sorry, I'm not exactly sure it's working.
Yeah, it's just a free-flowing conversation. So as you want to hop in, go for it.
Oh, sure. The thing I was just going to note there is just like this. There's this really bizarre thing that happens when you give somebody the opportunity to also earn one of these or use them in some kind of way. And so if you have these things and they feel like keys almost, like I've seen a lot of celebrities doing this where they kind of give out access using an NFT, and that's kind of a very exciting idea as well. Because otherwise you couldn't really do that. It's not like you can mail somebody, I mean, you can mail them a concert ticket, I guess, but otherwise you'd have to take their email down and like, write it down on a website. There'd be this whole kind of interchange of information.
Yeah, we've done a lot of that in our kind of social promo campaigns where you get the NFT and then you log into a SaaS app that we created. We check your wallet, and the wallet then can be checked against a smart contract, and then you verified that you have this NFT, and that gives you access to things. So it's really cool. But I actually want to, it's interesting, touching on both what you said, Al, and what Lisa said. It's like, I've worked a lot in SaaS, the Web 2 world. And so if you really look at what this thing is allowing, it's allowing decentralized ownership, right? And specifically with the gaming, it's obvious, right? It's like, okay, you own the in-game collectible, provably, you can transfer it. We can't say anything about that. Where like, World of Warcraft, they used to ban people for selling their in-game items. But that's kind of like on a bigger level. It's like, so in the Web 2 world, the Web 2 provider platforms owned all the data, and you rented it. Basically, you gave it, and they would rent it to you for a subscription fee. And in a decentralized ownership way, it's totally changing that whole model, right? Because you own it, and it's like the provider kind of share/rents it with you, right? So I think we're still trying to feel our way through the dark about how that's all going to work. But that's a big change. And so anywhere in that whole operational flow of how Web 2 worked is very different. And there's all kinds of problems with sort of security problems and the different problems with everything being out in the open. But I think that is like, it starts the obvious, the obvious use case is what we talked about, gaming. That's why a lot of people are really excited about, gaming and NFTs. But that's just one industry, and I'm sure it'll, impact every other industry as well.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in again about some of the use cases of NFTs that are not quite so obvious. Here, we're mostly talking about the obvious use cases which is artists and people who create NFTs as things that they're then going to sell. But I'm very involved with the DeFi space, and Uniswap V3, for example, uses NFTs to denominate liquidity within pools. So it's completely a financial application. There's no artistic value to that, but it has a financial value. It has, it actually is worth money because you own that claim on that liquidity pool. And that's one of those invisible use cases that's not going to be, it's not going to have mass appeal, but it makes everything run behind the scenes. You know what I mean? So NFTs are just this massive upgrade to our entire technological system that we may see sometimes, and sometimes we won't even see what it's doing.
Speaking about that behind the scenes aspect, I wanted to ask a question a little bit about community and messaging. Greg, on Edexo, you recently launched a community development kit for your users. What do you think is the biggest thing that community members get wrong about where NFTs are headed?
Well, it's really tricky. So the thing is, we kind of lucked into it, right? We said, well, why don't we use our API to make it so people can, mint NFTs on Telegram, and we'll make it so they have to be a member of our group to even make it work, right? And we the first one we did, which we really envisioned as a collectible for our community, not so much as a collectible, but as like your loyalty card that we could then, track and upgrade and give you badges and everything like that, right? And we did that on Binance Smart Chain, thought maybe a couple hundred people would take part, and it was gone like 5,000. We grew like 5,000 in 2 days. So they have tremendous power in terms of people want to join in. The tricky part is managing the people who come just for the NFT, right, and are not really aligned with whatever you're trying to do, and the actual audience that you're targeting. It's surprising though, it's not as many people as you might think that are just there for the NFT and don't get it. And then there's a lot of people who come just for the NFT and then they stay because they've learned about you and they think it's pretty cool. So the community development kit is actually what we built for other projects so they could do it simply as well. We offer the ability to mint in Telegram, the ability to mint on Twitter with just a tweet, which is pretty cool. And then we're just kind of rolling out other programs that you want to roll out on. But I think, there's a lot of thought that goes into the NFT, and how, what kind of attributes do you want to have, and how does that, align to, what you're actually trying to accomplish and growing your community. So there's a fair bit of kind of strategy that goes into, the technology.
Maybe what the community gets wrong is that their only thing to come there for is the NFT, and that's like, I guess, the confusion of the communication. It's all about collection from their end, but but the reality is actually there's like a rich community. There's a whole bunch of things to interact with.
Yeah, and that comes into that. So you definitely need to message that up front and make it clear this is not like an airdrop hunter kind of thing. This is not what this is, in big bold letters. But and there's only so much you can do to actually control that. But you do grow a lot in terms of having this kind of loyalty card. If you make it that you can upgrade and you can do things with and you can track.
Right.
And there you have to measure. That's kind of the abundance scarcity problem as well crops up into that.
I kind of want to jump in on that one for a second though, Colin, because it's not necessarily that jumping in just for the NFT itself is a bad thing either. Even if you're just kind of going around, punching your card just to kind of be there as part of history, that's kind of cool. We see this as kind of, especially with the atomic NFT standard, as sort of a convenient way to store information onto a blockchain. Because there's all kinds of reasons you might want to store some information on a blockchain, even if it is just to kind of stamp your card and say that you went somewhere. I remember when I was a little kid, sometimes you would go to these different places in Canada, like different tourist destinations. I knew they had one in PEI at Anne of Green Gables, and you could put a penny into the machine, and it would squeeze a penny out into this kind of weird shape. And it would make like kind of a collectible thing out of the penny and kind of stamp it. And then you can take these, and we had a bunch of them. Me and my sister, I think we each had like 3 or 4 of these things from different like random places we went to, because you'd find a penny somewhere and you put it in the machine, and then you get to take it with you. And this is kind of like, that's sort of how people keep track of reality to some extent. We kind of, we go along and we keep little keepsakes and that sort of thing. And when we spend most of our time online in a digital world, there's not a lot of that anymore. So even little things could actually be very powerful.
Yeah, I just want to jump on that because these proof of attendance, POAPs, I think they're called, are really interesting. They're a new way of recording if you happen to be at a historic moment in time, if you are there, if you're in the audience for some concert. We used to keep track of that, to use your terminology, by having concert t-shirts, right? We would buy the concert t-shirt that was there at that time, and you wore that as a badge of honor. I was there. But it's, those are not like a specific proof of attendance badge, whereas our POAPs now that we're designing with NFTs really are designed to show where you've been. It's like a little breadcrumb trail of where you've been in your life and how important that is. And also, by the way, I was born in PEI, so I loved your reference.
No kidding. You would also, incidentally, probably love proofs of real traffic. So the idea with these proofs of real traffic is it's a digital signature that you leave as you go around. So with these Narcissus flowers, for example, that's basically what you're doing is you're walking around leaving these little fingerprints, and then we collect all of those together at the end of the day to figure out which content's the best. So that's kind of the whole connection. My little sister incidentally lives in PDI right now.
I wanted
sorry.
not to get into or break up the PEI party too much, but I wanted to just touch on something you said, Al, because we've been speaking a lot about NFTs as collectibles, or specifically NFTs as assets. And Lisa, you mentioned a little one utility case that's sort of different from that in a way about the liquidity ownership. Al, you mentioned like NFTs as data assets. Do NFTs have an application on a smaller scale or more back end scale besides these sort of loyalty card collectible upgradable things? Is there a more infrastructure or functional case for these things, or are they largely tools to be sort of like owned and transacted?
No, I think the former is definitely true. They're infrastructure, and I'm sure you've already covered the big challenges of paying for gas for something that's meant to be infrastructure, because it just doesn't work. There's no way you're going to buy an NFT if you have to spend $700 to get it, and it's just, you know what I mean? So in order to ease that flow from items to be acquired to infrastructure, greasing the wheels to make things happen, being the rails on which things go, we have to solve the gas problem, obviously, and that's why we're here, I'm sure.
So actually, we have this. I'm working on this very problem for our community, and that is that we have a staking. Staking is a big part of the utility. We have like the general staking pools and general directional staking pools. But when you stake our token, you get back an NFT, much as you talked about. Now that NFT, which represents your stake, has a lot of utility in itself, but you wouldn't want to vote using Ethereum, right? Because what you just talked about, the gas costs, right? So we bridge that NFT then directly onto another chain. We haven't announced yet, which chain we're going to use, but we're obviously using a high transaction speed, low cost network that's Ethereum compatible with bridging. So you can actually just bridge that NFT over. And then and use it on a lower cost network, and that's definitely feeding that kind of multi-chain, cross-chain, multi-chain environment that you're going to have in order to use these things in useful ways for a lot of the use cases that we want to use them for. There's still it seems people asked me when we were launching, oh, why did you launch on Ethereum? You're this cross-chain NFT API, you could have picked any one of these, and I still feel like a lot of people want the core token to be on Ethereum. That's the sense that I got. Right or wrong, happy to be wrong there, but that's what we chose based on the feedback that we had. And then we knew that we always needed to bridge over to one of these lower cost chains.
I envy your foresight in that respect. We are currently thinking about how to possibly create a sort of a map of our token onto the Ethereum network, which probably would enable a lot of that sort of trading liquidity that you've talked about. We, on the other hand, were very focused initially on kind of the transaction throughput side of things. So we've been experimenting with trying to take a whole batch of transactions and lock them into Arweave at the same time, so that you can use the advantages of decentralized storage, which is the high throughput and like kind of large bandwidth of information that you can add, but with some of the kind of complexity of being able to do smart contracts and that kind of thing. And we found that works very nicely, but now the trick is kind of bridging it across. We've been experimenting first with NFTs because it's kind of like it's a low risk bridging situation. We can kind of help people to use the system. We can kind of guide them through the process, but it seems to be working, which is very neat. So what you can do is you can actually have a single decentralized identity that controls both sides. So you can move information across the network by using a signature from a wallet on both the Ethereum side and the Arweave side. We're finding this works very nicely, but it's definitely very complicated to build up the set of rules that's required to do this at a larger and larger scale. Interesting. Sorry.
That sounds super interesting. So
I Yeah, and I think we've had like the long-term view in mind, which was the right move. It just might take longer to get there, right? I love the permanent storage features that you envisioned from the beginning, and I think that was the right move. It's just, it takes a while to get everybody onto the technology that works.
I wanted to just sort of gear this conversation as we reach our sort of last few minutes here, and go around the horn and sort of ask you, finance and that sort of, and obviously everybody has their own projects, kind of, but just on a personal level, what is something that you hope for? We're in the room right now, folks, where Web3 and the future of the internet really is being built. And if you're in now, you're definitely early, right? I think we can all agree that this is just the beginning. So just on a personal level, what is a hope that you folks have for where this kind of goes? And I didn't want to cut you off, Lisa. So, or if whoever's ready can go first, I suppose I should say.
I suppose we've invited you guys here, so I should go first. My thinking would be that there is an enormous opportunity to fix a lot of the problems that we have, not just with the internet, but like with society in a bigger sense. Because information's always dominated society. Like if you look at the rise of like mass media, like television, radio, every time that a new type of media came out, it led to like massive psychological and sociological shifts. And this one is very different from all of those, because this time it's not one person who owns the system. It's actually all the people who are using it that own the system. And so it's kind of an opportunity that we could have like an actual unbiased media source. But it depends on getting everybody to go and explain what all this stuff that I just tried to explain in a more concise and meaningful fashion that people will actually grip very quickly. And so we're trying to find those spokespeople right now and train them up. But it's been that's kind of the main challenge. If we can get everybody to go and try to do it, though, someone's going to figure it out, and then it'll be fine.
Okay, unbiased media. You heard it here, Lisa.
Okay. Well, I couldn't have said the first part. I couldn't have said it better than what you started with, which is that this is a new, it's a shift, right? And if I move away from media, I would hope that this is the beginning of something that is a lot more decentralized and fair and democratized across the board, not just media, but for everything, for ownership, for access to financial instruments and tools, for ability to create businesses and create wealth. All of these things, NFTs are really, if we can get them mainstream, then it has the power to really change everything that we know. That's my hope.
Democratization and opening of access to things kept behind gates. Okay, that leaves, that's a pretty big one, Greg.
Yeah, well, again, Al and Lisa both said it perfectly. So I'll just add the only thing is so going back to the paradigm of the new internet, right? Like internet did definitely change everything. And it managed to do that without much violence. Right? Like there wasn't, they weren't really, arresting everybody who was, inventing Netscape, there was, Napster and stuff like that, but there really wasn't that much. So if we can manage to get through the same amount of disruption as the internet without, without much pushback, that would be nice, especially since it has, the real potential this time around to maybe, even the balance of power, in around the world, that hopefully there isn't any bad stuff. That it's all kumbaya like the internet was.
A non-violent revolution.
That would be great. That would be
Agreed. Agreed.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, that's a fantastic note.
I just wanted to sort of like do a quick recap. I mean, I think that we've covered that NFTs aren't a single thing, right? They can be a resource that's scarce and rare and exclusive, but it can also be a data asset that underlies a way more democratic, a way more abundant version of the web in the future. And I just in mind of keeping in schedule, I want to just say thank you, Greg, Lisa, and Al for your thoughts today and coming out for Koii's Garden Party. I hope everybody gets a chance to visit the digital art gallery where the flowers are live. We have a link if you go to koii.me/garden party, you will see the link for the event, and also you will see the link to go into Decentraland and actually walk around the gallery in a virtual kind of 3D environment. And that's really special. So make sure you get a chance to do that. And with that, that's our panel. Thanks so much, folks. I think we're just going to pass it on to the Koii team now, the rest of the Koii team, and just say another sort of wave off and send off. And I'll leave it up for there for now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Colin, I think we have to do an NFT drop, right?
Ooh.
Isn't that the last thing that we're doing today?
We got drops.
I think that we are just finalizing that right now, getting all the details sorted. Maybe do we want to walk around our gallery for a minute and show it off? Have we done that yet?
That's a great idea.
That might be. That might be a little ambitious, just given I think it is like a full 3D rendered environment.
I'd like to try.
Okay, I'll try.
I've got it. I think I can give it a shot.
Okay.
We'll see if it works. My Decentraland is now logging in, and my computer is plugged in and charging, so we're not going to lose it.
I love that.
It was almost dead before. Slight AV hiccups today. These were great panels, folks. Good job. I don't know if Decentraland is going to work on a share. If somebody else can get it to open, by all means.
I will try, but I can't promise.
It's a pretty heavy game. That's the only thing for Decentraland. It's an exciting environment, and it's completely 3D and rendered. Colin, I think you have to pull my screen share up on the show. In StreamYard, you might have to, or maybe Sandeep has to do it. Well, Decentraland is currently loading on my screen. It is at 83%. Oh, here it comes. Okay, so here you go, folks. This is Decentraland. I apologize for the clap in front of the microphone. I was very excited that it was on the screen. We are nearly there. We're at 83%, 84, 85, 86. Do we have 86? Oh, we're in. Okay. Ahead of us, you will soon see the wonderful Shanghai Gallery, thanks to our benefactor. And the Shanghai Gallery is typically filled with pieces of art and kind of rotating exhibits, but they have conveniently and kindly let us take over the exhibit for the month, I believe. So for the next month, you will be able to come to this gallery and see a Koii exhibit in real time, which will contain a whole bunch of Narcissus flowers along with a bunch more kind of stuff for you to look at. So I will begin walking up into the exhibit here. This is actually kind of like Counter-Strike, very similar level of kind of responsiveness on the controls. Usually you're going to use W, A, S, and D to move around. It is a little laggy now. I apologize for that. I have a lot of different apps open on my computer right now. This is the gallery, though. And so if we look on the left here, we'll see the first kind of exhibit of our Narcissus program. And this contains kind of the flow of the flower and some information about how the actual process goes. Down in the main area here, you've got the kind of history of how we got here with the Narcissus flower and the story of how this idea came about. This is something we've been working on for a few months, kind of as a proof of concept of the Koii network. And then finally, if you come upstairs into the kind of upper atrium here, which, if I fall off the stairs, please don't laugh at me. It's a little bit laggy. Okay, here we go. So Darren Kleine actually, unfortunately, could not join us today because he is unable to leave the children who he is responsible for teaching. But Darren is actually an NFT artist and also the host of the NFP podcast, and originated the idea of the dynamic kind of decaying NFT that originally led us to the idea of the Narcissus flower, which Colin actually should get full credit for the Narcissus flower. But Darren's exhibit is up here, and you can see a sneak preview of his remaining exhibit, which we have not released yet, but will contain essentially a decaying image that goes right from being a beautiful woman's face down to being a zombie if you don't look at it enough. So that one's coming quite soon, so you can stay tuned for that. There will be probably a drop or another garden party type event where we'll announce that in the future. But please come and take a look at our exhibit here, and see if you can avoid falling out of the gallery, as I seem to have done here. Oh, here we go. So I'm back on the main floor. And here's our fully bloomed Narcissus flower. Is that a good demo, Kayla? Can I cover the main points?
Yeah, I think it's great. The only other thing to mention is that we also have a small gallery for Kevin Abosh as well. I think it's on the other second level, but I'm sure people can go find that on their own.
And the link for that, if you want to go view and walk around yourselves, is koii.me/gallery. So check that out and enjoy that. We are, I believe, ready to roll for our NFT raffle. If, finger snap, drum roll. Okay. And Jeff, do you want to announce the name of the winner?
Oh boy. All right. Well, I think I will actually turn this over to to Al to drop this.
You think it should be Al? Okay. I mean, it's just a name. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Take it away.
How do I actually get I don't know how to get the name. What is the name?
Okay.
Sorry, I thought everybody had the name. I'll read it out. It's fine.
Okay. Colin's gonna do it.
That's fine. I'm happy to do so. So I do just want to thank all of our attendees and our panelists. Again, I know this has already been iterated by Colin, but we are very excited to announce this, and we hope that you will continue to join us on Koii Network as we continue to build challenging and difficult things for the future of a more rewarding and decentralized internet for all. So without any ado,
the winner of our Koii Network Kennel Club NFT is entry number 4,837. It is Shivangi Mishra. And we have reached out via email, and we have your wallet address. So stay tuned for good things coming into your wallet. Thank you so much for participating, everybody. And I'm positive it will not be the last drop that we do or the last contest, if Jeff has anything to say about it. And so stay tuned for that. And again, one final thank you for everybody who came on, our panelists, our guests. We're here because this is a project with a lot of people working behind it, and they deserve a chance to sort of share those thoughts and get heard. And it's a community effort, so really appreciate everybody coming out. And I think with that said, audience, thank you for listening and sticking with us. This is our first big panel. We are so excited to do some more with you guys, and that's how it feels. It feels like we're doing it together. So without further ado, let's wrap it up. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks, folks.
Thanks, everybody.